slate up a little bit too. That'll make it.
Is that one of your grandkids, Bunny Chance?
No, but I claim her. She's darling.
Look, there's the Pleasant Grove girls, the princesses. Do you want to go say hi to Sammy really fast? Goodness, he's struggling. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna pull it again, okay?
Pull a little bit tighter.
What is it? Green, yellow, and red over there.
I can't do it. Let's just tuck it in your shorts. Okay? That way people can just tell that you're wearing some pants, huh? There. How's that? Cute little front tuck. My girls,
That looks good.
yeah, my girls say that that's the thing to do. The pageant girls.
That's the style.
Yeah. The front tuck is what they call it. Is that funny? Alright, you ready? Hop down. 1, 2, 3.
There's two people on the program. I wanted to talk about what they're going to do, changes in the
Hello.
This is a good place for me. I'm going to sit over here until she gets done.
I think that's why.
No, I am not speaking. I took care of 3 grandsons all day, so I'm here. My husband has to like just 6 now, so we'll see if they're 3, 4 times. My daughter lives in California. Her sister was a bridesmaid at a friend's wedding where they put on. So she went down with the 2 girls who were he's been a little for 5 days, and he has 10 parts. So we've only had them 2 or 3 hours a day until today. But I usually have them because the last thing is I pay for those. A 3-year-old. So her dad called me. Hi, sorry, I'm in the city council chamber. Well, I just sat down, but I had my phone turned off. Okay, that's great. They won't have any dinner. And there's a big bag of all their stuff. They've had their treat packs. I made one for Sammy. But they've got the toy swords and spoons and water bottles. It's all in a bag. Ask Dad where it is. So everything's together. He's just fussing. Okay, I love you. Take care. Bye. He's on his way. Dad will. Yeah. jazz musician, my jazz pianist son. He's applied for doctoral programs the last 3 years and hasn't made it. So he teaches at a high school, teaches at BU, teaches at BYU, teaches at a junior high. You know, and he teaches lessons. Pardon? He wants to teach on a college level. I have about next week. Just last time.
We would like to welcome everyone out to our city council meeting and would like to call this meeting to order. We would like to begin with a inspirational thought that is on the screen. This is submitted by Donna Kay. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is not a brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch that I have got hold of for a moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. George Bernard Shaw. We would now like to have our Pledge of Allegiance by our little Orem patriot, Sadie Spence. And if Sadie is here, okay. And looks like we've got a chair for her.
Please stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sadie, please stay there. Thank you. We would now like to approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of April 25th, 2017 with a change. Dave, would you like to give us the
Yeah,
change?
it's on page 23. Denise Gibb is the name instead of Denise Gibbs, I think it is.
Okay. Could I have a motion, please?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We would like to go over some of the upcoming events. On April the 10th through May 27th, the City of Orem is holding their second annual spring cleanup at various locations, Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. On May the 29th at the City Cemetery, we're holding the Memorial Day program at 9 a.m., promising good weather for that, by the way. June 1st through the 7th, we have the filing period for the mayor and 3 council seats at the city recorder's office. On June the 5th through the 10th, the City of Orem is holding its annual Summerfest at various locations. And on June the 17th, we have the Transportation Advisory Commission holding the annual bike ride at 9 a.m. at the Palisade Park. We have a reappointment to the Arts Council of Mr. Cody Clark. Is Cody here? If he is, could he please stand? Anyway, Cody has been a good member of the Arts Council, and we appreciate all his work over many years since 2012, and would like to reappoint him to another term on the Arts Council. I would like to make a motion that we do that. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We have a proclamation. And I don't know that I have been given that proclamation. Do you have a written copy for National Public Works? I'll just read it here, but I don't have a written copy. Whereas Public Works is a combination of physical assets, management practices, and personnel necessary for government to provide and sustain infrastructure and services essential to the welfare and acceptable quality of life for its citizens. And whereas the City of Orem's first public works project was undertaken in 1928, whereas the Orem Public Works Department was officially established in 1965, that's hard to believe, and whereas public works services are an integral part of our everyday lives, and whereas Orem citizens receive public works services for the acquisition and delivery of high-quality drinking water, collection and treatment of harmful wastewater, collection and management of stormwater, construction and maintenance of superior well-lit street networks, provision of the efficient movement of traffic at high levels of service, maintenance of beautiful parks, parkways, landscape medians, park strips, and cemetery, and purchase, repair, and maintenance of hundreds of pieces of equipment and vehicles. And whereas the support of an educated and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient ongoing operation of public works facilities and programs, and whereas maintaining, revitalizing, reinvesting in, and renewing our community's infrastructure and public services will ensure and sustain safety, performance, and a high quality of life into the future. Now, therefore, I, Richard F. Brunch, Jr., Mayor of the City of Orem, do hereby proclaim May 21 through 27, 2017 as National Public Works Week in the City of Orem, and encourage all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing public works services and recognize the contributions which public works professionals make to our everyday health, safety, welfare, comfort, and the quality of life. Dated this 23rd day of May, 2017. Is there a motion to accept this proclamation?
I'll move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. To the end of this being National Public Works Week, our Public Works is holding down at the Public Works Building a lunch at noon tomorrow, and everyone is invited, so just to let you know that. So now we'd like to go ahead and have a report from our Summerfest Advisory Commission.
Mayor, I think that was just city employees and
City employees?
so you invited a lot of people. The mayor will be.
I thought you all got to come down and eat with us, so, Chris? And Chris is going to tell us that maybe there'll be some extras if somebody wants to come down.
Inasmuch as we would love to invite all of the citizens of the city of Orem, we have not planned for that. But the sentiment is there. We do appreciate our citizens for supporting us. And we have invited our public works employees and our city council and executive staff to come if they can. That'll start at noon. Mayor, I do have a few people here from Public Works I'd like to recognize.
That'd be great.
In conjunction with our Public Works Week. Can I have Neil Winterton is our Water Resources Division Manager. Lawrence Burton is our Water Reclamation Section Manager. But coming forward right now is Lauren Willis. He's our Pre-Treatment Coordinator. And then Lawrence Burton is our Water Reclamation Section Manager, who has been here for 34 years. His anniversary will be July 5th, July 5th this year. He started 34 years ago. We also have Ryan Johnson, if Ryan could come up. He's our field supervisor over our collection group. And then, do we have anyone else here? Oh, Matt Slaymaker, please come forward as well. We have Matt Slaymaker, who is one of our plant operators. Oh, and then Chad Johnson is our crew leader in our collection section, who does all of our inspections for all of our pipes and manholes throughout the city, of which we have almost 300 miles of sewer lines. So I'd like to turn just a second over to Neil, who has some presentations here of awards to the water reclamation section. Neil.
The Water Environment Association of Utah meets annually, and they judge over 50 water reclamation plants in the state. Over the past couple of years, we'd never got a chance to acknowledge the award we received last year, but between last year and this year, we have received the following awards, which I want to state here. Outstanding Plant Award, Outstanding Biosolids Program, Outstanding Pretreatment Program, and one of our operators, Dylan Hansine, won Outstanding Collection System Operator. In addition to that, we won kind of what would be considered the best in show as the Orem City Excellent Award for receiving so many awards. So it's an award for receiving so many awards. But it's quite an accomplishment to receive that and be recognized for that, and all doing that within a very constrained budget, very fiscally responsible staff, and council support for taking care of the needs for the citizens. I'd like to also just, Chris mentioned, I want to take 1 second and tell one story that exemplifies the 34 years that Lawrence has committed to the citizens of Orem, as he will retire at the end of July. This happened a couple of weeks ago on a Friday afternoon. We got a phone call. Lawrence was in my office, and it was a woman pretty distraught over making sure that there was some coordination occurring because she was going to replace her water service. She was worried about where the sewer lateral was and the interference of that. I had her on speakerphone, and we looked up on the map where it was. And before I could turn around and swivel my seat and ask Lawrence to have one of the fellows who would normally go do that on Monday, he said, "I'm going to take care of this right now." And that exemplifies the type of service and commitment that he has given to the citizens of Orem and to the group over which he has supervised. So we appreciate that. That's all I have.
Can we give you a round of applause? Thank you very much. We'd now like to go ahead and have a report from the Summerfest Advisory Committee, and Wally Harkness, if you'd like to come forward.
Mayor, City Council members, and other city personnel and guests, thank you for the opportunity to make this brief presentation. My name is Wallace Harkness, and I am serving as the 2017 chair of the Orem Summerfest Committee. Orem Summerfest, Sense of Community. The theme this year coincides with the great legacy of our past as a city and people. We strive to live our values, achieve our best in all areas of education, industry, and commerce while serving each other and the community. Earlier this year, as a committee, we felt it necessary to create a mission statement for Summerfest to clarify direction and focus. And we heeded the advice from our steering committee that strongly suggested it be just 3 words. You can see that our mission statement, engaging, celebrating, and showcasing the citizens and community of Orem through annual event, service, and recognition. And we use that as our guide to plan out the week of Summerfest. And our theme this year is sense of community, being the 3 words as suggested. The schedule of events and activities this Summerfest accentuate this sense of community and begins on Monday, June 5th with storytelling at University Place. Of course, storytelling with the Timpanogos Institute originated in Orem and is still headquartered here. It will headline Kevin Kling. It is free to the public as a thank you, of course, for being such a gracious host over the years, and is in part sponsored by University Place and will be on their grassed area. As you know, they had anticipated having their outdoor amphitheater finished this year, but of course the parking structure fell a little bit behind, so we'll do it on the grassed area. There'll be a stage set up, and citizens are invited to bring their chairs, their blankets, and enjoy a wonderful evening with Kevin Kling on Monday evening. On Tuesday, we have the Community Day of Prayer event, which will debut the Spirit of Orem Award recipients. It's wonderful to be able to acknowledge some of our stellar citizens and contributing members of our city. You may be aware that people were invited off the city website to submit nominees for that, and there were some guidelines presented, and the committee, of course, reviewed those nominees and selected two that will be represented and presented on Tuesday at the Reagan Theater. It is a non-denominational event. There'll also be the First Responders Award presented. I'll talk a little bit more about that as it coincides with Cooper's Run. And that event will be hosted by our Grand Marshal this year, UVU, in commemoration of their 75th anniversary, coming to an end just at the beginning of this year at the Reagan Theater. So that is Tuesday. Wednesday, we want to, of course, thank Dastrup Insurance, who is our VIP dinner sponsor, and in conjunction with that we have partnered with Deseret Book. As I'm sure you have heard, Nathan Pacheco will be performing at the Outdoor Sierra Shell, and that will be a ticketed event in the city, which will be a first-time event, but we're very excited about that, naturally. A recognition coupled with the affordable display of genuine talent here in our community as part of Summerfest. The dinner, of course, allows us to recognize our sponsors who have really embellished and made Summerfest what it is. And we get to recognize our Grand Marshal, our student marshals, and our wonderful committee members who do so much to plan out the week. Thursday. Our new exciting edition on Thursday debuts the first annual hot dog eating contest by Wiener Schnitzel at 6:30 on the center stage, or on the stage at City Center Park.
How many people have you had sign up? I heard 200 were trying to enter, but...
We've had not quite 100, actually. It was just over 80 last I recollect. 80 people like the idea. Okay.
Okay.
So we've got a reasonable amount who will compete on that competition, but we've had quite a few likes for that event, and that'll be sponsored by Wiener Schnitzel. The park itself serves as host to the Family Carnival Night beginning at 5, where, of course, all rides, regardless of what the normal ticket quantity is required to take those rides, is only one ticket that night, and all tickets are just 75 cents rather than the regular $1 price. And so that will be wonderful. All our food vendors will be, open that evening, and our sponsors will be doTERRA. There'll be balloons. There is also, who's our other sponsor? Quick Quack. Oh yes, Quick Quack, and there's one other. Oh yeah, and Seven Peaks. And so we've got wonderful just support from the community. And we'll have royalty there that evening to help in distributing those balloons and, providing directions. We have Orem's Got Talent on the city center stage. There's a lot of fun going on at, again, very reasonable cost that can make wonderful memories and celebrate our city. On Friday evening, on Friday, the Sierra Park opens. There are so many more activities happening in Sierra Park this year. We have our business showcase where we'll have more than 60 businesses from the community, inviting people to learn more about their business. We'll have pony ride and petting zoo. We'll have some carnival, other little fun booths. There'll be a lot of fun, exciting happenings. We've got Home Depot that has actually put together some fun crafts for children to do both on Friday and Saturday. We'll have reptile shows. We'll have juggernauts. There's a lot of wonderful things that will be well detailed and outlined in the magazine that people should be receiving over the weekend or just the day after Memorial Day. I've got a schedule that I will pass out to each of you so you know the events Monday through Friday and the things at which you can participate. Let's see, and then in the City Center Park that night, the boutiques will then be up joining the carnival rides and the food vendors. There will also be carnival rides in Sarah Park to spread out a little bit of that footprint. And if any of you have been in City Center Park over the years, it's very crowded, and this will allow for more and more people to just enjoy the wonderful celebration of and kickoff of summer. Also in the City Center Park that night, you know that with Center Stage here in our community and the Del Grossos, we have been a real conduit to some incredible national and international dancers. And there'll be a minimum of 8 who perform, of course, on City Center Stage on Friday evening, free to the public again, as another way to just celebrate the wonderful talents and industry that we have here in the community. Saturday begins in Sarah Park with Cooper's Run. Many of you are familiar with Cooper's Run and the accident that transpired, I believe it was 9 years ago. And as a result, the Cofords have so generously decided to make that part of Summerfest because, it's a way to accentuate some of our strengths as a community, taking a tragic accident and making it a wonderful growing experience and an awareness. And that, of course, is the Cofords who actually award the First Responders Award, and they'll do that on Tuesday evening at the event at UVU, just because it's a more appropriate form where people can recognize it. And I invite all citizens here in the room as well to come to the Reagan Theater on June 6th at 7 o'clock to see those presentations of our Spirit of Orem Award, our first responders, and then the wonderful presentation that will take place that night. So how wonderful it is to be part of a city celebration. Over the past few years as a volunteer on the committee, I've recognized the opportunity that Summerfest has provided in bringing all of us with our unique interests and experiences together. This is one of the reasons for the increase in the number of events and activities, increasing the footprint to include 2 parks and other locations, but most importantly, the involvement of Orem businesses through sponsorship. I believe it's making a difference, and we've only begun to scratch the surface of what is truly potential. Lastly, I hope my tenure on the committee has established some processes and systems that will allow future volunteers continued success with good preparation and planning earlier in the process for 2018. I look forward to seeing all of you through the week of June 5th, and will savor and sense the splendor of our Orem community. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Wally. Appreciate it. Wally has done a tremendous job in organizing and running Summerfest, and we just appreciate his leadership and guidance this year, and I'm excited. It's going to be a great time. Thank you. We'd now like to go on to the report from the Heritage Advisory Commission. Would ask Jeff Wilson to come forward.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Jeff Olson, by the way.
Sorry, thank you.
I represent the Orem Heritage Advisory Commission, and as you may already know, this commission makes recommendations to the City Council regarding development of 2 memorials honoring veterans, one in the city cemetery and the other the city center. And one of the other things we do is establish a local tradition of formally celebrating our heritage through Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Veterans Day, and other appropriate holiday celebrations. We also have established a tradition of flag raising ceremonies and conduct educational outreach to enhance appreciation for our nation and the sacrifices made on its behalf. I'm here today to officially extend an invitation to all of you, and I don't have a PowerPoint. I wasn't killed this. It's okay. but to officially extend an invitation to all of you, along with all who are here in attendance, to attend this year's Memorial Day program, which will be held at the City Cemetery on Monday, May 29th at 9 o'clock in the morning. And as in years past, we have a great patriotic celebration in store with speakers chosen from retired veterans. We have one this year who's actually a retired Navy captain who served after the 9/11 terrorist attacks and has some amazing stories to tell. We'll have a flyover by some vintage aircraft that will come over the cemetery as well, along with the flag exchange ceremony, posting of the military flags, and then taps, a 21-gun salute, and a silent drill performance by the BYU Air Force ROTC. And I just have to say, I've been on the commission for a little over 3 years now, and I think I'm the only one who's not a veteran who's on the commission. And it amazes me. It's really educated me. I think I'm the one that's benefited more than anybody out of my service over these past few years. But after having worked on this commission for the past 3 years, I can tell you that this program, like others in the past, will be a fitting tribute to veterans and their families and will serve to instill a profound sense of patriotism in all who attend. A little side note on me, I have a keen interest in serving on this committee since, as a lifelong Orem resident, many of my relatives are interred in the Orem Cemetery as well, and many of whom's names are engraved on that very Veterans Memorial. One in particular is my grandfather, whose name was Jesse William Cordner, who served in World War I in the Battle of the Argonne Forest, and who is the grandson of Thomas and Mary Ann Cordner, who you may know as being the first official residents in Provo Bench, who I am a great-great-grandson to. So I have a great connection to the city of Orem and my ancestors. As you may know, like I said, Thomas and Mary Ann were credited with being the first full-time residents of what was then known as Provo Bench. My grandfather's father was James William Cordner, whose home is where the planet Earth is right now, and is on a list of the state historical sites. If you go read the plaque, you'll see my great-grandfather's name, and that very building is also where my parents were married. I have a deep connection to the history of Orem and to the veterans. It's my privilege to honor these Orem veterans, including my grandfather, for their service, and it gives me a deep sense of satisfaction as we see, as on the commission, as we see every year the number of youth who attend these programs and learn the history, meet these veterans, and witness the patriotism that is presented. On the behalf of the commission, I thank you for your time, and we hope to see you all there next Monday.
Thank you, appreciate it. Before we move on to our next item, I wanted to report to you that we had the Miss Orem Scholarship Pageant this last weekend, and our new Miss Orem for this coming year is Amanda Flinders. I don't know if she's here or not. If she is, could she stand? I don't think she was planning on coming. And then our new Miss Orem Outstanding Teen is Cortland Sondrup. Is she here? Okay. Anyway, they are great girls, and we're lucky to have them, and we're excited to work with them for this coming year. And to that point, we've invited Miss Pleasant Grove to come talk to us with her royalty and tell us about Strawberry Days. We always enjoy this because they bring something with them.
Hello, thank you so much for having us. My name is Lindsay Savage. I was recently just crowned Miss Pleasant Grove. These wonderful ladies are my royalty and then our rodeo queens. So my first attendant is Ansley Funes. She's the one holding the yummy cheesecake that you'll get after.
Yes.
The best part. My second attendant is Courtney Ricks, and my third attendant is Sammy Jo Carson. And each one of them is just going to tell you a little bit about Strawberry Days, what they like about it, and then we'll have our rodeo queens introduce themselves after.
Great, thank you.
So my favorite event of Strawberry Days is the concert in the park, and that's on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. and you get free strawberries and cream. It's the only night that they give it out for free. And we have Johnny and the Rebels coming this year, so it's a great family event.
Great.
What's your date? What day?
Tuesday?
That was on Tuesday, I believe that's the 12th? Yeah. The 12th of June.
Great.
It's the 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Right, my favorite event during Strawberry Days is on Friday, so that would be the 16th, I believe. But it's Huck Finn Days, and it is a great family event. It's at the Pleasant Grove Rec Center, and there are games and events and different things for kids. They can go fishing, donut walk, all sorts of things, and it's all free, and it's very fun for the kids and families.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my favorite event will be held on June 17th, and that will be the Grand Parade. That will be at 10 a.m., and we just hope that you all be there and you can support us on our float and support all the rest of the floats too. Would you like me to bring the cheesecake up there?
Yes,
Yep.
please.
Don't throw it at him.
Hi, I'm Shawnee Harward, and I'm the Strawberry Days Rodeo Queen. Just a few things about our rodeo this year. It'll be held on the nights of the June 14th through the 17th. The show will be starting at 8, and our pre-show will be starting around 7. All tickets this year are reserved seating, and they can be bought online, and I believe at Smith's and Macy's location. And I'll let my attendant talk to you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Wall. I've been here the last few years, so good to see you guys. I will be representing Strawberry Days as the first attendant this year. As well as with what Shawnee said, we're currently looking for wild cow milkers too. So if you're into that, please sign up. You can look at some of the other events we have on our strawberrydaysrodeo.org page also. Thank you guys for having us.
Great. Thank
you. Mayor, I think Steve Downs might want to do that.
Really? Oh, okay, thank you very much. Can we give him a round of applause, please? We now come to the portion of our program for personal appearances. We ask that anyone who comes forward hold their comments to 3 minutes and give us your name. You do not need to give us your address. And we have three people who would like to speak. First of all, we have Carolyn James. Second of all, Carol Harrison. And third of all, Jill Moulton. So if Carolyn could come forward.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Chantinettes is the group that we're here representing tonight, and this is a banner year for us as part of the city celebration. We are celebrating 70 years with the Women's Chorus.
Wow.
So we're glad to participate. However, I have to get after your committee chairman there for Summerfest. We always sing at the Summerfest, and we did not get contacted, and we're ready to sing. So put us on the program.
Please give him a call.
Please put us on there.
Okay.
We're here to thank you. Our main purpose here to thank you for the CARE grants. We know that you're awarding those tonight, and we're very excited about it. We've really worked hard this year, and we feel that the CARE grants have been a great help to us in the past years. We've had them for 9 years. We've been getting a grant, and during that time, we've improved our attendance, our membership from 35 members, and this year we have 62 members. And we have to have a waiting list because that's all the music we have, 62 copies. And also, we've noticed our attendance has really increased. Last week, we gave a wonderful spring concert, and now we had over 500, and that is very good. But the month before, in our previous concert, we had over 1,000 people. So we have really improved and gotten more members and gotten better advertising and better equipment. And because of the CARE grant, we really feel that that has been a great benefit to our group. We've been worried, though, since we heard that there was a dishonest person in one of the recipients of the CARE grants, and we were real worried that that was going to affect our grant adversely. But thanks to Stephen Downs and to Jennifer, his assistant, for working with us, we feel that that problem has worked out, and we agree with the new guidelines as Jennifer just sent out to us today. And we'll just tell you that in our group, we have been very careful to safeguard the funds. We know that it's important that the taxpayers are paying these, and we have made every effort to make sure we have a very good auditing process. We have 2 separate bank accounts. I've been in this position for 9 years as chairman of the Shotton Care Committee, and we have 2 bank accounts so that we never cross them over. We have our care account, we have a treasurer for the care account there, and we have a treasurer for the general funds in another bank account, so there's no crossover. We have a very good auditor that audits us every year, and have here tonight to give to Stephen, if he's here, a copy of our audit. We agree with the new guidelines for the mini and mid grants in 7.2.2, and we think that will be real helpful to work with you because we'll be able to use those funds in serving our community. And so we look forward to this and a great new year. We look forward to Summerfest, and we thank all of you for supporting us as you have. Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful report. Appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Carol Harrison. I've lived in Orem for about 20 years, and we live just south of Lake Ridge and just east of UVU. I have several concerns about the proposed PEG development next to UVU, Lake Ridge Junior High, and my neighborhood, but I want to talk about the density, about the PEG housing proposal. The PEG development proposal includes 3 buildings to house 1,153 people in the first phase, and an additional 500 people in the second phase for a total of 1,653 residents. A 3-story parking garage for 80% of the residents would allow 1,185 cars. The city of Orem has told them they need to have 0.8 or the 80%. There is only about 8 acres of land right there. The amount of cars on this spot of land, I feel, is very unreasonable because of the increased traffic that it would create outside of UVU, spilling onto 400 West right in front of Lake Ridge Junior High. University Gateway Apartments, which sits directly south of UVU, is exclusively for students and has 4 buildings, 285 beds, and 175 parking spaces, and it sits on 2.68 acres. If this complex had as many students as the PEG development, the acreage would be increased to 15.54, which is close to Wolverine's Crossings. Wolverine's Crossings is across I-15 on the west side. It has 5 buildings. It has 1,200 beds as opposed to 1,600 beds that the PEG would have. It sits on 15.74 acres. There is about 800 parking spaces on almost 16 acres of land. There's lots of space, and the traffic doesn't spill out just onto a couple of little spots like PEG would. There are several outlets for the traffic, and they go onto very large streets, Geneva Road and University Parkway. UVU has stated that they want housing close to UVU to build a community feeling for the students. This would be better created by housing more like BYU Heritage Halls. Heritage Halls has 2,500 residents, which obviously we don't want, but it only has 374 parking spaces, which are available on a first-come, first-served basis. Heritage Hall sits on about 70 acres, I think, and the parking isn't even close to the building. The PEG apartments are expensive. They are not renting exclusively to students as other apartments in the area do. There would be more renters who would be driving to work, which means more cars spilling out onto 960 South and 400 West. Is that it?
That's it.
You don't want more? I have a number.
No, we'll have to stop there.
I have this printed. I want to hand it to all of you.
That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Jill Moulton.
Hi, Mayor Brents and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to share a few more comments and reemphasize our need. I'm representing Utah Regional Ballet for our CARE grant. We're a professional ballet company, one of 2 in the state of Utah. We are grateful for the support that you've lent us in the past. It's been critical to our mission to help support, sustain, and improve the quality of art amenities that are available in our community. This year, more than ever, we have a financial need where we have to replace the Nutcracker scenery and costuming that has been on duty for the last 35 years for all of the patrons in Utah County. This will add an additional $135,000 to our annual budget of $478,000. So it is a significant increase in the money we need to raise. So I wanted to reemphasize that point that your funding is critical to our organization. And we hope that as Utah Regional Ballet, we are contributing to your care mission of increasing the quality and availability of arts in our community. You have led out, you have set the standard as Orem City in Utah County. And I recognize that there is some concern on your part that you are the only city that is helping support the ballet. I want to assure you that we are aggressively and enthusiastically, energetically working with other cities as they get up to speed and develop the capacity to help fund the ballet. Presently, we have one city other than Orem that has their program in place to be able to participate in this kind of support, and that would be American Fork. The others are not far behind, however. There's a couple in the wings, so we're working energetically with them. We are in residence in Orem City. We perform in Orem City. We engage in educational opportunities for students, all secondary students in Orem City. Just last weekend, we performed at the Sierra Theater to sold-out audiences as our professional company collaborated with students in ballet training in our community in a production of 12 Dancing Princesses, which was an original creation of our artistic director. So we have a broad and vibrant and beautiful opportunity to invest in our community, and I thank you for your continued support.
Thank you, appreciate it. The ballet is fabulous. We love what you do. Thank you. We'd now like to go ahead and close the personal appearance portion of our agenda this evening and go on to a consent item, specifically to reschedule the August 22nd, 2017 City Council meeting to August 29th, 2017. This is due to the possible canvassing of the military with regards to a primary on the primary election. So I would like to make a motion that we change from August 22nd to August 29th. Is there a second?
Second. Sorry. Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll now move into our regular scheduled items. Our first one is a public hearing with regards to amending Article 22-11 of the City Code for a PD 48 zone for PEG development. Jason Bench is the presenter. Jason, would you like to make mention of some items on this?
So we will just simply request that it be continued to June 27th. We'll be able to have the Planning Commission prior to that and hopefully be before you then.
Okay. Would someone care to make a motion?
I move that we continue this request to the June 27th City Council meeting at 6 p.m.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember McDonald.
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion passes. We'll move on to item number 15. And this is a ordinance amending section 22-11 -23B and Appendix X of the Orem City Code, Appendix 10 of the Orem City Code pertaining to development standards of the PD 11 zone at 1430 South Sand Hill Road. Our presenter is Jason Bench.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Before you tonight is a request to make some modifications to the PD11 zone, just to give you an idea of where that is. 1430 South, which is at the top street, Sand Hill Road to the left side or right side, depending on how you're looking at it. What they're proposing tonight is to make some minor changes to the ordinance, including the appendix, which would include a revised concept plan and elevations that go along with that. You can see there, that's the zone, so the whole thing that's outlined in the greenish color is the PD11 zone. What they're proposing is to exclude, you can see the outline in red, those portions have now been given back, or I don't know how that term has been done, but the previous owner has taken those properties back, so that's not part of what they're proposing. The site plan that was approved, which is part of the ordinance, currently did have that as part of the landscaping area. It did not include buildings, but this has now been excluded from that. So that's the reason why they're coming before you and making some changes. The increase in density from 14 units to 14.5 is the fact that they lost half an acre of property, which increased the density, although the number of units, if you look under the density portion, they're dropping from 149 to 146 units. So they're actually building less units, even though the property is going up in density. Some of the changes include a setback allowance, if I can show you on this. See if you can see you see the cursor down here below. The setbacks typically on the exterior are 25 feet. Because there's an existing old barn, I don't know if you're familiar with the property, but there's an old barn there. That setback from that unit right there to the barn itself is 20 feet. The rest of the properties will have the 25-foot setback. So the ordinance, the text allows for that one area in the code to be a 20-foot setback. The private streets and alleys go from 28 to 36 feet, maximum 36, minimum 28. And then the roof pitch right now, the ordinance requires 512. They're wanting their 3 stories to be 412 to get to the maximum of 40 feet. They're about 37 feet at this point. And then to change their 2-story units from a 512 to a 612. So to split the difference on those proposals. So those are the changes that they're proposing as far as the text is concerned. They're proposing 4 different types of buildings. The green are the buildings that will actually front 1430. Those are the 3 stories. The bluish one that's in the middle will also be 3-story. The yellow and the purple will be the 2-story units that they are proposing. These are the ones that 3-story units will actually be fronting 1430. 3-story units, they are townhouse style, so they will be owning the entire 3 floors. Back, the garages will be accessed from the rear of the property, so what you'll see from 1430 will be the fronts there. The garages will be on the backside. They are proposing different, some stucco, some different cementitious siding, and then they do have some stone along the bottom of that elevation.
How high is that stone, Jason?
I'd have to...
Is the applicant here?
Yeah, this is
Did she come?
Sal Travis. He's representing D.R. Horton.
Okay.
He could probably address that question for you. Need to push that button out.
So the stone is the first floor height.
Okay.
So the buildings that will be in the middle, you can see here that has the different colors of stucco on the top, the siding in the middle, and then some different colors of siding on the back. And again, they're also rear loaded. If you go back to the concept plan, you can see the front.
So the stone is just on the front?
Just on the front. There are some 2 stories on the back that have some of that stone as well.
So on the green buildings, the stone goes around the front on the ends and wraps around the sides and the rear on the garages.
Okay.
So you can see the middle buildings, these have the actual walkways that go through. So the fronts will be here and the garages will be backloaded on the different alleyways that you see there. And these are the proposed elevations for those middle units. I don't think they have any stone on these. These are all siding or stucco. These are some renderings of those buildings. You can see this one up here would represent the stone and things on the ones facing 1430. This would be the one that would be interior to the project. And these are the 2 This is one of the two that I'll show you. This is the other, the two-story units that they will have in the back. When we took it to Planning Commission, there was some issue, and we have issue with their elevations. They did, this was all stucco. They proposed to put some different types of materials. It's the cementitious siding part. It's not stone or anything, so there is stucco and those materials that you can see outlined below. And then this is the other type that they'll also have on that back side, the two-story units. So just to point out again, so you can see the two-story units will go on the east and then on the south side as well. The three-story will be on the 1430 and in the middle of the project. So those are the proposals. The Planning Commission did review this application, basically agreed with staff that they needed to upscale their elevations. These are what they have proposed. So we've sent the latest this morning to the council as far as what they proposed, and they're here before you tonight to seek approval. So I'll be glad to turn some time to Chriselle or answer any questions that you have.
Sure. So question for you. Have you built a complex like this in this kind of style in other cities?
Yes, we have. And in fact, is this where I plug in?
You can, yep.
I have a short little presentation to show you. We have built these type of buildings in South Jordan, just off of 114th South and Bangerter Highway. We've also built these units in Pleasant Grove, over in their Groves community, just off of the Pleasant Grove Boulevard, kind of to the northeast or northwest of the doTERRA complex. So we have done those. I wanted to briefly introduce you to DR Horton. We haven't built in your community. It's not coming up. There it is. For a while. We have been just recently named the America's Top Builder, again, for the 15th year in a row. We became a division here in Utah of DR Horton in 1992. We've, since that time, have built more than 5,000 homes. Sorry, I can't see with my glasses. Now I can't see you. Developed over 4,500 lots, and that would mean that we've been involved in about 125 communities along the Wasatch Front. The Utah division consistently is ranked as one of the top 5 largest builders in Utah, and we're proud of that. We are continuing to grow. I joined the DR Horton team about 4.5 years ago, and when I joined, we built about 250 homes. This year, we're on line to build about 500 homes, and we're happy to be here tonight to hopefully add your community to our developments. Within our company, we take customer service and satisfaction very seriously. We offer a 1-year warranty on all of our homes, regardless of whether it's a townhome or a custom home. You get a 1-year warranty where we'll come back and take care of any issues that you feel. And we nationally, through the DR Horton community, we rank in the top 5 nationally in customer satisfaction as far as all of the divisions that they have. We have 28 divisions through the country, and we're proud of that fact. We have 11 active communities along the Wasatch Front. This is a map that shows you where we're at. We build townhomes, we build small single-family lots, single-family homes, and large custom homes. And we're currently the developer builder for 2 of the top master plan communities in Utah County. They're Sky Estates and Legacy Farms. Located, Legacy Farms is in Saratoga Springs, and Sky Estates is in Highland. This is a picture of our Legacy Farms project. It's 183 acres. It has 856 units, and we will build that out in the next 2 or 3 years. Sky Estates is in Highland. It was on 83 acres. It's 233 homes. It ranges from active adult attached product to large custom homes. We also build, these are just some of our feature products. We've built up in Tallwoods. We have a current complex down in Provo called Osprey, and then Sky Estates again in Highland. The picture that you see on your right or your left, but on the side of the screen, is called Marketplace. It's in Bluffdale. These are the units that we're proposing. So those elevations that you saw, This is the building that we would be building there. These would be the blue-coated buildings, so those to the interior. Part of what we're proposing, and I brought with me tonight if you're interested, part of what we like to do to bring some variety, we're not planning to build the same color building. It is the same building, but because of the materials that we use and the way that we mix the colors, it adds a large variety. So we have 5 color schemes that we're proposing for this community to go on our building. So that'll add a dimension to the architecture, and we won't build the same building across the street from each other. And that's part of that red, green, blue color map that Jason showed to you. Legacy Farms, again, it's another attached product that we have. This is the Rushton Meadows project. These are the front-loaded, not the front-loaded, but the ones with the courtyard that you saw. They're slightly different. This community had decks, but this one will not for Lexington. But again, this is our plan, our layout, and we look forward to answering any questions and hopefully seeking your approval for tonight. Thanks.
Can you tell us about any amenity packages you have with these?
So
I realize they're not apartments, but
correct. So we will be in compliance with the open space that's required. We are building a clubhouse, which will be located along 1430. And then this map's incorrect as far as what we'll have, but we'll have like a gathering spot for a fire pit and a community neighborhood association kind of thing. We'll have a volleyball sports court and an open play field, all in this central section right there.
And can you tell me what the price ranges are on these units and their size?
So these units, let me look at the brochure. The pricing is still very tentative. We haven't come out with the full price, but they'll range from $250 to $275. There'll be 3 and 4 bedroom units, and their square footages they range from about 1,700 square feet up to 2,100 square feet. There's 2 or 3 different floor plans that are available in the community. So the two-story units are 1668 with a basement that gives them another 656 square feet, and so it's about 2,325 square feet. So there are not basements on the 3-story. They're slab on grade. So because they load from the rear.
Any further questions from the council? Councilmember Seastrand?
Jason and the applicant, since you're asking us to approve some modifications, a couple of questions I have. So does the parking change at all on this particular application?
Parking stays the same. The ordinance currently requires 2.78 per unit.
And so 2 of those units, each townhouse has a 2-car garage.
2, and then 0.78 is per visit.
0.78 is for visit.
Which you can see throughout there. They have some surface parking.
Okay. From a configuration standpoint, is what's already approved is the same configuration as far as where the 3-story and where the 2-story units are?
Very similar, yes.
So that hasn't changed in terms of the number of 3-story, the number of 2-story?
No. The 2 stories have always been on the outer perimeter next to our future residential.
Okay. And comparing the elevations that were originally proposed versus this, what's the change from the elevation?
It's a different builder, and I do have the elevations if you want to see.
Totally style? I mean, the
style.
Same type of configuration?
It's similar. I mean, they're 2-story and 3-story. If you want to unplug it, I can show you what. This is what's currently in the ordinance.
And tell me what the materials are on the...
So these are all cementitious siding material.
Okay. So it looks like brick, but it isn't?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And same thing on the lower one as well?
Correct. Yep. And this is the concept plan that was approved, so it's very similar as far as number of units. It's a little bit different configuration on some attached portions and block configurations, but it's similar.
And a good portion of this does, if you look at the current plan, looks like they're contingent on continuing development out to Sand Hill Road. And so it kind of stubs off there.
They gave us a phasing plan that if they were to pick up those in the future.
But what if they don't? You got a road there that kind of stubs in.
Yeah, it would be just a dead end to the garages that face those units. So these units here would, they're all garage loaded right there, so that would just be a turnaround. If in the future they do buy that, then that would be extended out. Would not have access to Sand Hill Road. They'd have to come back and exit out on 1430.
And does that create enough, I guess, so no change because you don't have any access to Sand Hill Road anyway, right?
Right. Portions of this property are zoned PD11, but portions are not. So if they ever do that in the future, they would have to come back and actually get that rezoned to the PD11.
If you look at the setbacks on the west side, are all of those are they the 25 feet?
West side are 15 feet because it's potential future expansion.
Now, so when the presentation was made, I was under the understanding that was just by where the barn was.
So the 25 feet is on all the south portions. This portion is all 25, excepting that one unit that's 20.
Okay, but
the east portion is 25.
So go to the west line.
And then the west is 15.
All of those are 15?
Can be 15, yeah.
And what was the original? So the original is 25?
No, it was, I think, 15.
15 is what was in the original plan?
I believe that's correct, yeah.
So there's nothing changing from that standpoint?
I think that's correct, yeah.
Actually increasing. I believe the setback on that west side was less than 15, and we've increased it to 15.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Sumner.
This is for the developer. In the Planning Commission, Mr. Peterson had several questions, and the developer said he would meet with him after and satisfy his questions. Were all those questions that Mr. Peterson presented, have they been addressed and satisfied?
Yes, that was a previous developer. Our Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Peterson didn't come because we have resolved those issues. That's why those areas that Jason highlighted have changed a bit. We worked with him to give him, we've deeded land to him around his barn, and we will grant an access through our roadways from 1430 and that open space for him to be able to maintain the side of that barn. He also had a roadway on the southwest corner next to our detention, so in the lower corner of your screen, that was the portion, that small portion that we lost. We've deeded that to him so that he can maintain that access. And to my knowledge, he's happy with everything that we've worked out. And we have offered him to purchase the land that he owns along Sand Hill Road as well. So we're working with him to be able to continue this development.
I don't see him here tonight, so he must be happy.
I'm told he likes me, which is a good thing. I like him as well.
Councilmember Luray.
I'm not really crazy about your modern look. It's very boxy. My personal preference, I don't care for it. Do you have a different look that would include more stone, more brick, less of this cementy looking stuff? I mean, I know you're a really good home builder because I know their reputation, but I personally think they're kind of ugly, to tell you the truth. So do you have something that would look better, nicer, maybe even, I saw the beautiful stone on your Highland, and I realize they're different products, but I would think with your volume you could get a good price on stone. Do you have something that would look more pleasing to the eye, less modern, more traditional?
Not in a 3-story product. We don't. Because of the height of the building and the narrowness of the units, it just lends itself to this type of architecture much easier. And so we have modified this and included a lot more stone. It's hard to read in these elevations, but the hardy board that we do use, the lap sidings that you see, are not all the same dimension. So we use wider and narrower planks. Sometimes we use the shingle sidings. We're not proposing that on these buildings. But as you go through this architecture, so on the bottom level, you'll see that we've got stone that wraps probably 3/4 of the building, and it's the full height of the first story. On that center section where you see the red, we have a wider lap siding, so it's more like 12 inches, so it's big and wide. As we move up to the second story, that narrows to about an 8-inch lap siding, and then the stuff that we use on the third level narrows even more to about maybe a 5 or a 6-inch lap. And don't quote me on those because I'm not the builder part, but that way it gives some variety and some dimension. I don't know if you saw that picture that I sent. Do you have those photos available, Jason? So you can see in these photos the differences in the textures and the sidings. And they give you the variety that we hope, and it is the modern architecture, but it doesn't really, we haven't got anything in our arsenal that that's any different than modern.
Right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember McDonald.
Thank you. Where are these units? Which development is this?
So these units that you see here are Marketplace at Independence. They are located in Bluffdale off of 140, is it 144th, that exit?
Okay. Couple of other questions, if I may. I think this would be more for Jason. This project was approved many years ago, I think, in some phase or another. Is that correct?
The ordinance was approved many years ago.
How many years?
Probably, don't quote me, but it's probably 7.
We have a lot of not quote me tonight, but that's okay. 7 years ago or so.
I didn't memorize that part, sorry.
Okay. And we've had several reiterations of this project, as I recall, most of them previous councils, and it's kind of sat dormant until they found what my children call Dr. Horton, Dr. Horton, to work on with us.
Correct.
You were only here today because we're increasing the density, is that correct? If they hadn't increased the density, we wouldn't be here.
They're actually proposing to change the concept plan and the elevations to go along with the ordinance. So
Okay.
because they're changing that, the council has to approve the changes.
Okay, and the elevations are going to change whenever you get a different developer. I'm less concerned about that, and whether they appeal to Councilwoman LeRae or someone else, that's your decision in marketing, I understand. But why are we asking for an increased density? I think that's a very sensitive issue for the citizens of Orem.
The density's gone up because they lost a half acre of property.
No, the density's gone up because they want to put more houses on the less land they're buying. I mean, I understand if someone else is going to buy that land and develop it.
So they're building 4 less units, I guess, basically than what was originally approved.
But per acre.
The density has gone up.
So if they had the same density as has been approved by previous councils, how many units would they lose?
That's 14 units per acre, so you'd have to do the math on that.
So how many acres are
about
here?
140 units, roughly. So they lose about 6 or 7 units.
I don't know that we'd lose that many, but 4.5 is what we're asking for because it's a nice even number. We're actually at 14.3 units.
14 is a very even number as well.
Correct.
And that's what's been approved by this council before.
Yes. And 149 was the number of units that were on the previous project. When we expand, which we're hoping to do, we will only be at 14. So this is, in our view, this is only a temporary, although it is a permanent in the ordinance. When we include those future phase and the land that would be acquired with those properties along Sand Hill Road, we'll drop back down to 14 units.
How soon do you think you'll acquire this extra property?
We're currently negotiating with Mr. Peterson and are contacting the three separate unit owners on the end, their rental properties, so it's kind of hard to track down the actual owner. But we are working, and our hope would be that we have 2 phases. We're hoping that would be our third phase. We don't want to come and remobilize again. So if we're active on this site, we want to make that acquisition as soon as possible.
So it'd be 142 units is what they would be able to build at 14 units per acre on the 10.15 acres.
Okay, thank you.
So could you tell me, do you own the land right now? Is it under contract?
It's currently under contract pending your decisions this evening. Once we have your decisions and we get our site plan approval, which is the next step to go back to Planning Commission, we have tentatively slated to close in July, and we begin construction in August.
And how long would it take to complete the project doing all 3 phases?
Doing all 3 phases, it'll probably take Well, we would build phase 1 and phase 2, and then pending that we get this development. Our development schedule will probably take us about 6 months to get all the roadways and improvements in there.
Sure.
And then we'll be in the building cycle of the vertical portions of constructions probably for 2 years.
What do you like about this particular site and this project? What attracts you to it?
Well, we like the location. We think that we can add a new vibe to the area. We also know that we are the 4th people to come and ask for this to happen, and we're hoping to take it off of your plates.
Sure. And, you know, we've had some discussion as a council to say, are there some ways you could add some additional stone on the first level? Now, I understand, you know, on 1430 South you have that, but on some of your interiors you don't. Any thoughts on that?
We're open to discussion on those. Part of the reason that we haven't included stone on those is to lend to another market level and affordability. Stone, while we are a large builder, is more costly, but that's kind of the dynamic, is that we'll be able to offer different price levels depending on the location within the project. There are stone products on the 2 stories, and so hopefully we've been able to diversify enough to bring a variety to the community.
All right. Any other comments from the council? Councilmember Lentz?
So, Jason, as this was going through the process with the city staff as well as the planning commission, as far as the elevations and the materials, do you see any benefit to what's been proposed as opposed to how the original ordinance was written in regards to the materials? Or
materials stay the same. It's just a matter of what they've actually put on their elevations and what's adopted as part of the ordinance, so that they're not changing what they can put in there. They still require stone, brick, or rock, and allows the cementatious siding. It's just a matter of what they've proposed as part of their appendix, because the council, whatever is approved with the ordinance is what is binding them to that. And so the materials stay the same. It's just how they've used them is what's changed.
Okay. And regarding the potential phase 2, you're talking about potentially buying additional property. Would that require, as this ordinance is currently written, would they be able to proceed with that as this is currently outlined, or would that require an additional?
They would have to come back for phase 3 because part of the property is not zoned PD 11.
Okay.
It's only phase 1 and phase 2.
Thank you.
And phase 3 is the part on Sand Hill Road?
Correct. And that would require a city council modification.
So I'm familiar with this project. I've driven by it many times, not as a project, just as a bare field and trees and weeds. And I would love to frankly see it developed personally.
Great.
So this is a public hearing. If there are no further comments, I'd like to open this up to the public. If anyone would like to make a comment, please hold your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name. You're welcome to come forward to the microphone here.
I'm curious to know if any of your units are wheelchair accessible.
They are not. They're for sale individual units. But the site is handicap accessible. And they could be adapted if there was a buyer that needed to have that. Our hallways are 4 feet wide, as well as our stairwells, and we could make modifications to any bathroom that needed to be accessible.
But you need an elevator?
In a 3-story, we would, yes. And then the other one is, do I understand right that there's only one place to get in and out of that unit? I mean...
No.
There are two.
There are 2 accesses on 1430.
Right there and then...
Right there and right there.
Yeah.
That's a little better. I'm just worried about, one and everybody trying to get out at the same time.
What was your name?
Oh, Nancy Parker.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward? Seeing that no one else is willing to come forward, wanting to come forward, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this discussion and bring it back to the council. I have some thoughts. My personal thoughts are I actually like what I see. I would like to see stone or some semblance of stone on the first floor, maybe like 20% on the buildings on the first floor as an addition. I personally am probably a little bit different than Debbie. I do like the modern look, and though my own home is more of a traditional, but I do like the modern look, and I think this has a nice look to it. I am familiar with your project up north, and I think it is a good project. So,
Thank you.
Councilmember McDonald.
Since there's no guarantee on phase 2 or 3, I guess.
Phase 1 and 2 would be approved.
1 and 2.
Yeah.
Since there's no guarantee on the phase 3, I would like to hold the 6 units that would keep it at the same density until phase 3 is finalized, till you have the property. I think that would be keeping with some of our commitments to citizens that we wouldn't increase the density, and since phase 3 isn't a guarantee, I would like to keep that hold. I don't know how we do that in connection with this motion, but
you'd keep it at 14 units.
Keep it at 14 until you get phase 3. I realize that means you just don't build one of the units until you get that property done. But in that way, I would think that we're keeping the project exactly as been previously approved with the 14, and realizing, Jason, your statement that if this other thing gets completed, which other property, and we have to come back, then they'd have the availability on the total project to go to the 14.
And yes, and the council would have to review it at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lentz.
So just to clarify, was it 4 units or 6 units that they'd have to drop?
They can get up at 142 based on my math, so they'd lose, 4?
Okay. So just hypothetically, if we were to continue this item to the next city council meeting, I think it's 2 weeks from now, would that give your team enough time to see what that would look like with 4 fewer units for the site plan?
More than likely, we would just eliminate a building or 2 along the west edge.
Okay.
Actually, the one that's the most northern on the property, the 3-plex that's on that west edge, is actually a 5-plex if we get that 3rd phase in there. So that building would more than likely go away, and we would find one other unit. We'd probably drop one of the 6-plexes to a 5-plex.
Okay. And then I'm probably somewhere between the mayor and Debbie on I think there's a lot of good to the design. I am just curious if other council members have concerns with the design of the elevations. If we gave them some more time to reconfigure, what are some of the specifics that we would, like what expectation would we have so that they could come back understanding, this is what we as a council are seeing? I don't necessarily have a specific answer. I'm just asking a question. So.
Who are you asking to?
If any other council members have with the design, or if you'd like to see more stone or less stucco, for example, is there a maximum percentage of stucco that you would like to allow first?
So I would like to see a 20% factor of stone on the first level on all the buildings. That would be my desire.
I guess I don't like it feels very boxy to me. It's very boxy, so I'd like to see some, you have these awning things, I don't know what you call them, that jet out. I don't find those very attractive. I realize these are personal preferences, but some sort of look or feel that's a little less boxy. That would be what I would tell you. So.
She's busy writing. Okay, Councilmember Seastrand.
Thank you. I remember this 7 years ago. Might have been 8 years ago. So I voted against it to begin with, and frankly, it's been okay with me that it hasn't developed over these years. Sorry, Mayor, but I was concerned about the density back then. It was designed or meant to be a little bit of a transition to the single-family homes, which lie directly south of it. We recognized across the street to the north are some higher density housing in the Fantana and those apartment complexes there. I recognize the need for some transition to drop single family homes right on directly across the street from that's probably not reasonable. I felt this was a little bit high on the density. So I'm in agreement with Mr. McDonald that to increase the density is tough for me, because I felt like we really hit the high end of the mark to begin with. I would have been much more comfortable with the 8 to 10 units to the acre, more traditional type of smaller townhomes, more of a community family neighborhood. I'm really curious as to the nature of who's going to be buying these. Who is your target demographic for these properties?
So our hope is that we can offer these to first-time homeowners, first-time buyers. At that price range, it's income levels of about $60,000 to $75,000 a year. So that's our demographic. That's who we're marketing to, and that's what we're looking for. Similar to what we've marketed to in Rushton Meadows, which is in South Jordan, just outside of the district. So. And
has that been a reasonable type of client, or how many of those turn out to be rentals to 3 students that can afford to pay the rental rate?
We don't have any in those properties. We also don't have any, I'm not aware of any in Pleasant Grove that are student rentals that we have. Those, we don't track them once, but while we control the homeowners association, they have not done that. But once they leave our control, we can't really.
Yeah, and there is a homeowners association.
There will be a homeowners association.
And are there any? Are you changing any of the restrictions? And this goes back to the original. Was there covenants and requirements in the original homeowners association?
Not by the city. It's a private association.
So we have no control from that standpoint.
Right.
Do you feel like we need some from what we've learned?
Well, we would control as far as number of singles, right? If they do rent it, they could not rent more than 3 unrelated singles. That's city code. There wouldn't be any restrictions in their bylaws.
Nothing needed from a parking standpoint, or that we've got adequate parking there to cover that?
No.
So anyway, so my bias is that regardless of what project went in that met the current code, I wouldn't be jumping for joy. But I appreciate that. I think the intent of what the council is saying is let's not increase the density, and let's try to elevate the quality of the product the best that we can in trying to attract a good, stable clientele that also really looks nice in this particular area. Thank you.
Councilor McDonald.
I've forgotten your name, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Chriselle.
Krista, the actual drawings, the actual pictures you have look better than these drawings.
Correct, and that's why we prefer to show not drawings but pictures.
So, which are we going to see? These or those?
That's what you're going to see. That's what the real thing turns out like. That is an actual project in Bluffdale. You're more than welcome to go and see it. I wish I could take you on a virtual tour right now, but that's there, as well as on 114th South. Pleasant Grove has a few. It has a different.
Speaking of virtual tour, can we get a Google map look? Is it recent enough we could put the address in and take a look at it?
I don't know if Google has updated it. Last time I looked at Google, it was 2016, but we could look at
when were these built? Were these just completed?
So these were just finished. We just finished selling these. I think we sold our last one in February of this year.
And when were they started?
They were started in August.
Oh, quick project.
Do you have an address by chance?
Address for...
Mayor. Find it if it's...
I can find it. It's right off the point of the mountain.
It's Bluffdale?
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's nice.
Mm-hmm.
This.
Mm.
We're stoning it, right?
Before we lost that picture, we were having a discussion back here about bringing rock or brick or something up those columns that pop out. I know I'm the one who asked you to change your audio visual, and now I want to go back to the old picture, but we can do that after you see if you can get that.
Well, and tied to that is a question on the grass versus the bark. And in the site plan, it shows green. Does that indicate it's going to be grass, or is the landscaping intended to be bark with some intermittent
So in the pictures that you see here and in between those in the site plan where we're close together, this would be either bark or gravel. We don't like bark. It blows away. So more than likely it will be a small type gravel.
No grass. Is grass kind of avoided, or is it?
No, grass would be along in the larger areas, but because they're so narrow, the grass doesn't survive as well. And so that's why we've done more of a xeriscape kind of a look between those units, but there would be grassy spaces where we have.
So these would just be on the inside of.
Yeah, just when we have those
around the outside.
sections. Yeah, so we'll have grass along in there where he's pointing, but where you see all the sidewalks down between those units, that's the picture that you're seeing there. Those would be the areas that are mostly bark.
And what about in the very front of the along 1430 South?
So along 1430 South, there would be grass, yes. And then once we enter those fenced courtyards, it would become concrete and bark or gravel with plants. Part of the ordinance and the adoption of the PD11 zone requires a certain number of plants for each unit and a certain number of trees, so we will comply with that.
But there's not a requirement for grass there, Jason, is that? So the grassless feature is within the code?
Right, as long as it meets they can have a coverage with plants and different things that meets the requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
Question on your project there to the north. How quickly have those units sold?
Sorry, how quickly did those sell?
Yes.
We sold probably 7 or 8 units a month for those few months that we are. We actually picked up the project that he's pulling up in distress. The builder that was doing it couldn't sell and market his units, so we picked up the last 50 units, I believe, and sold out between August and February of this year.
Okay. So affordable housing is a concern within our community.
It's a concern everywhere.
The price point that you have here is one that some people could afford, I believe. Some of our homes are going up much higher at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, our city listed by Deseret News shows that our homes have gone up by 10% in the last 12 months. So affordability is a concern that I have.
We do as well, and our main goal is to provide an affordable housing element. That's one of the best things that we do. 50% of everything that we do here in Utah is a townhome, which is our affordable product, and that's what we've been doing for the past 15, 16 years.
And the people who are buying these, can you tell us who they are?
We have all walks of life. We have older people who are looking to downsize. We also have young first-time marrieds, young families with 2 or 3 small children. These are 3-bedroom units, so it gives you the ability to expand. Our 2-story units have a basement that you can finish and have another habitable space if you want to stay there and continue to grow. We've got a lot of singles as well that have purchased these, especially up in West Jordan, or South Jordan, excuse me. And it brings a very lovely dynamic to the community, and we've been very happy with the associations that we have had there and the projects that we've turned over.
Okay. Jason? Oh, I'm sorry.
There's no Google images at this point, so.
Okay.
We could see the aerial, but not the 3D.
So a couple of questions. So this project has already been approved, this concept. If the units were to change as far as density, then we would have to approve that. But if they stayed the same, then that's already been approved at 14 units per acre.
Right.
And on the setback over by the barn, if they change the setback back to 25 feet, and I don't know what the deal is with the barn, I don't know what condition or whatever, but if you stayed at the 25 feet, you'd not have to make a change there, and that would stay the same. And so then the third area is the proposed building elevations that have been approved, which D.R. Horton is proposing to change.
Correct.
But if they stayed with the same elevations, then there would not be a need to approve anything this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So then, as I see it, and I don't know anything, maybe you can discuss the barn for me a little bit, if you even know, I don't know. And then talk to us a little bit about the elevations. Like I say, I would be in favor of the project with 20% stone. I don't know what the elevations, how much greater expense the current elevations are compared to what you're proposing. And I know there are new materials out in the marketplace, and they're very attractive, but maybe you could address that.
So as far as the 20% stone requirement, we are proposing 3 different types of architecture. Not all of those require a stone to fulfill that style of architecture. Our farmhouse does not have any stone on it, and it's a very common and very sought after architectural style at this point in this market. Lots of people like that, and it doesn't have any stone on it. We would have to make a change to that. Not that stone doesn't work on a farmhouse, but that's not what the market has liked and what we've used. The craftsman style that we have, it does have 20% rock on it currently, so we wouldn't have to make a change of that. And then the traditional style that you see in the 3-story is just simply a marketability choice. We would exceed that 20% stone on the green architecture, the green buildings that you saw on the code. We don't have any stone on the blue, which is the major portion, but again, that's the dynamic and the market style that has sold and been successful for us. So that's the choice that we've made. It's very easily adaptable, but again, it would change the dynamic of our sales ability and the market that we're hitting.
And the elevations that are already approved, can you address that for me? I mean, that's probably a whole different product than what you're...
It is a whole different product. It was designed with the original approval.
Debbie was on the council back then and got this approved. So.
This was and I think it's kind of deceptive because it does read like you are approving stone or brick when it's actually a cedar shake style lap siding product. It's not a product that once we looked at as far as the floor plans and the livability, we were impressed with, and that's why we've chosen to use our own product and are asking for those changes. And then as far as the barn, it is currently used by Mr. Peterson. He has a manufacturing business that he runs from that barn.
I'm familiar with that.
And so that's why it's not being, originally when this project was approved, they had struck a deal with the purchaser to demolish that barn. He has since decided that he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to retire from that business, and so that's why we worked out the agreement with him to allow that to remain.
But if that was not changed, he could still possibly be open to working with you.
If the setback wasn't changed? Yeah, he could.
I mean, if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Councilmember Lentz?
Jason, during the process with the staff and the Planning Commission, did anybody suggest or throw out the idea of having like a 20% limit on stucco per site or anything along that line? I'm just wondering, in order to facilitate the idea of having variety to the design so that you have multiple different types of products you can offer, rather than mandating that a certain percentage be a certain material, I'm wondering if we could just limit, because as I was looking at those drawings, there's a lot that is very attractive about those properties. To me, the stucco portions were the only parts that really kind of cheapened the look of some of the designs, but was a specific percentage thrown out?
No, during the process we did ask her, Griselle, on several occasions to look at adding some additional stone or some type of brick or rock or things along the elevations, so that was part of our conversation.
With the current design, what's the maximum percentage of stucco that you have on any given side of one of the buildings?
It wouldn't be by ordinance, it would be what would be approved by the council.
Right, I'm just, with what you guys, I guess this question is for Krista. Is there any side of these buildings that is all stucco or a majority stucco, or?
No, there is not anything on these elevations, I'm looking at the wrong one, where you have a full elevation that is just stucco.
So just to
back and fix that at the request of staff.
Yeah, this elevation at one time was completely stucco. We asked her to go back and change, and so you can see the different colors here now have changed to that different material. So there was some elevations that were completely stucco, which we asked them to look at and come back with something else.
And is that 50%, like I just eyeballing that, is that about 40% stucco?
Probably about 40-ish, yeah.
To me, that it still just seems a bit high. Like if we had 20%, it would essentially just mean half of those 2 stories would need to be some other material. So if we did want to go down that road, maybe my suggestion would be to limit the stucco per side of any one side of the building to be 20 or 25%.
So I personally like the project, but I think what we're trying to do as a council is just bring the level up just a little bit more in quality. So if we were to continue this on and come back in 2 weeks, do you think you'd look at the elevations from any different angles to maybe satisfy that a little bit?
We can definitely go back and look at it. Yeah, I mean, we can look at it. Again, it's a personal preference, I think.
Sure.
And we've been successful with these products and feel like that what we have produced and the pictures that you've seen where these same percentages have been used, I think that you all, whether you liked the modern style or not, felt like it was a nice.
It's an attractive product. I agree.
So it'd be 3 weeks. It'd be June 13th.
Would that work for you to take one more look at the elevations? And
we definitely want to be successful in getting this approved, so we can go back and look at it.
So maybe I would, yes, Tom?
Could you email us the addresses of their other sites that we might be able to go and see in Salt Lake? Because again, I like the picture better than the draft, and maybe we'd be okay, but I'd like to if you can get those addresses to Jason, we'll just stop by in the next week or two, it sounds like.
Jamie, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Mayor, just so that I can translate, I think what I'm hearing you saying is not take a look at it, but come back with something different. Is that correct?
I would like to see her come back with some additional changes to elevations. I personally like what I see, but I'd like to see if we could just bring it up a little bit more.
And does that mean adding more stone to more buildings, or does that mean adding more stone to the buildings themselves?
So as I look at it,
on most of them, and it would, like I said, it will change our architecture. It'll change what we're trying to accomplish as a community feel.
Sure.
To do that, and
so I guess what I'm thinking is, can you look at some proposed ideas and come back and talk to us about it, and then look at it from your perspective and say, is this financially feasible to make this work? And just see if there's some ideas. I mean, personally, I understand where you're at, and these don't necessarily, some of them lend themselves to stone, other ones do. But are there some ways just to make them a little more, I don't know, attractive in some way?
And again,
and I
think this is an attractive building, so it's a personal preference. So maybe.
Sure.
Could I comment on it?
Just some ideas. Maybe if you could look at some proposed ideas. I know that you've come back with these new elevations. Was it today?
Yesterday.
Yesterday?
Friday.
Well, it was Friday.
Last Friday.
Friday, okay.
Last Friday.
So you actually made some changes that
We
were...
had several rounds of changes, because what we initially proposed was a lot different than what you're seeing
Right.
today. So we've been about 2 or 3 rounds with the staff, and now we'll again go through another round.
And those are attractive changes. I guess what I would like to see is, one, if we could see your other product, and then 2, some of the changes, if we could see them ahead of time and just get a feel for what you're looking at, maybe have some conversation. So,
can I comment?
Councilmember Seastrand.
So, I don't know. I am not a designer. I'm not an architect. I can't give too much judgment in terms of what needs to happen there. I do feel a key aspect with the staff. They see this all day long. They've worked with a lot of different options. So for me, the high water mark or the barrier would be to say if staff comes back and says, you know what, we like these modifications, it's a good consistent fit that's consistent with other developments going on that are of this nature, and maybe they're there. So let me just ask staff, is from a standpoint of the changes that they've made, are you comfortable with this, or do you feel like there needs to be a little more enhancement to the overall look, feel, and quality of the project?
I think there needs to be a little more enhancement as far as the types of materials on the back sides.
And are you able to delineate what you interpret that to be that would be
Well,
kind of meet the best of both worlds?
You get into not wanting to design it for them.
Yeah.
So that's our dilemma is at what point, and that's
But
why
you can say what you don't like, give them an idea to say, here's what we would change with that.
I mean, they did make some changes, and we're before you with those changes. It still doesn't. I mean, there's still obviously some stucco. There's still a lot of cementitious material. There's not a lot of stone. That's what we're wanting to see is a little.
The concern for me is I don't expect you to chase a ghost, and
I think
it takes time and money and energy to do it. I'm trying to see if where's the place that you can get your guidance in terms of direction, and bringing back 3 or 4 options that are somewhat undefined. I don't know if that's chasing a ghost or not. My gut feel is the staff may be a better source of getting you help with some of those options.
Some guidelines could be, to Mr. Lentz's point, maybe 20% max on each side. To the mayor's point, maybe 20% stone, and that would give them some guidelines to come back with some.
Reduce the stucco is probably the aspect that was of concern here, and have a look and a feel that is a little elevated.
And I guess my point would be that this architecture is quite enhanced above and beyond what was previously approved. You had a full cementatious fiberboard elevation, and we have added stucco, we've added stone.
You feel good about this.
So I guess my frustration, and I apologize, but I've been told by staff on several occasions that they were okay with it, and then I get into a meeting like this and it changes. And so while we are willing to continue to keep working to get in a positive approval, and we'll do that, but I don't want to chase a ghost, the ordinance where we are not asking for a change does not require a certain amount of stucco, stone, or brick, or whatever. It just says that a combination of these materials, no vinyl siding can be used. So I have met the ordinance that has been approved, and I'm not before you asking for a material change. I'm asking for approval of my project with my architecture as the developer of DR Horton. And so that's my frustration, and I apologize for that.
Sure.
But we are in compliance with the zone and with the approval that previously been granted, and so that's my frustration.
Sure.
Understand.
So if you could work with Jason a little bit and take a look at this, and then maybe we could work with you a little bit and just see what we can come up with. And so I would like to make a motion that
Mayor, can I?
Sorry, was there an issue too on the density? Were we saying to try to keep it? So that's already been, you're good on
that's
that.
been taken.
That's what I was going to say. I like Mr. McDonald's suggestion on the density.
Right. So I think, do you have a comment?
Yes, just in response to the representation that you are in compliance with the zone, you are not in compliance with the zone. The density is greater with your proposal. It requires approval of a concept, and hence, while the spirit of what you're trying to portray is consistent with what we've been talking about, you are not in compliance with the zone.
As far as the density or the architecture, I agree that I am not in compliance.
In terms of the density and in terms of approval of a concept plan. Hence, you are here having this conversation.
Okay.
So anyway, I would like to make a motion that we continue this on to our city council meeting of June 13th, 2017 at 6 p.m. And is there a motion? I mean a second.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Seastrand.
Aye. Before I vote, can I just clarify, it's 3 weeks, right? Would that give you sufficient time to go through that? Okay, aye.
That'll give me sufficient time, but it is my anniversary, so I may not be here.
I'm sorry.
We hope you're not. We hope you're not.
Well, we'll see how, yeah.
We hope your company's here.
Aye.
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 I'm going to vote aye, but with the exception of the density, I think you're the expert on what the market needs, and I would have approved this today, but for the density, but we'll see in 3 weeks, or we'll see someone from DR Horton, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll go on to item number 16, which is a public hearing on the University Parkway landscaping amendments. This is to amend section 22-8-9 through 22-1147 and enact TT of the Orem City Code pertaining to landscaping requirements along the University Parkway corridor. Our presenter is Jason Bench.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We're here to present, and we have some representatives from UTA and the landscape architect that has worked on this project. Before you tonight to amend our ordinances to allow or to approve a landscape corridor plan for the University Parkway corridor as part of the Provo Orem Transportation Improvement Project, the BRT project. We're here tonight to change our ordinances to allow that to basically bring properties along the parkway into compliance. The biggest thing that we've had with property owners in them negotiating with UTA is they want to be in compliance with the city codes. Our current ordinance would make them legal non-conforming, and so this proposal would make all of the properties, because it will be installed as part of this project, legal conforming as to the plan that's proposed. So just give you a highlight of this document, appendix or TT, is actually 44 pages long. Each of the properties are represented on this plan. This just gives you an idea of the complexity of the landscaping that's going to be proposed on the parkway. This is front of Lake Point Shopping Center that you can see a lot of the trees, and then the Center Island trees, and then the south side also has trees. The main point of this plan is because we're reducing the overall width of the landscaping along the parkway, we are increasing the number of trees that will be put on the parkway. This is front of Lowe's, just to give you an idea. So it's kind of a typical, as you see, each of the property owners will have a little bit different variety. It depends on where they are and the width that needed on the intersections. So there'll be some areas that just have trees with tree grates in the sidewalks. There are some that have up to 10 feet of landscaping. So it's a variety of the landscaping. This is kind of the shot that you see in front of Lowe's looking west on the parkway. The ordinances will affect C1, C2, HS, the PD5, the PD12, and also the PD34, which is the University Place project. All those zones will be subject to the new appendix that will be a part of this zone. What this does is this refers the landscaping to Appendix TT, and they would need to comply going forward with those appendixes. So any death of a tree or somebody takes it out, we would make them be in compliance then going forward with this appendix. It also requires that all property owners from the back of curb towards their property, they would be responsible for maintaining cleaning ice, weeds, snow, all that maintenance as part of that. Sorry, my machine is going a little slow. This gives you an idea of the types of trees. Maybe I can have the landscape architect, if he could come up and address. He did select certain varieties of trees, not only that could live in the environment we have, but also in the snow, the ice, and the salt, and different things. So these types of trees have been selected and put in place, and maybe you want to address that.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Greg Graham. I'm with EDA Land Planning, and I'm the landscape architect working with AECOM and Andy Powell. So on the trees here, we had to, find trees that would, one, be good street trees where they'll grow tall up above the buses and the vehicles, and then two, that they'll be able to handle the winter salt conditions, because you just can't throw any tree in this particular condition and expect it to live. It has to be able to tolerate the road salts that are applied during the winter. We also were looking for trees that have good seasonal changes. So they're lush in the summertime, and then they have, your yellows or reds in the fall. So it will really give the city a nice feel throughout the various seasons. Some of the trees that are planted that Jason mentioned in tree grates, that particular tree is the lacebark elm, and it's specifically good for compacted soils, which is what you generally have in a sidewalk condition. So the idea was to create this nice cathedral effect as you drive down through University Parkway. So as time passes, say 20 years from now, maybe 30, you'll have this really nice, beautiful canopy. So there'll be street trees in the center islands that'll be planted up with shrubs around it. There'll be street trees in the park strips, along with shrubs and flowering ground covers. So the idea was really to create something that really attracts people in various seasons, and also to provide a nice driving experience for the motorists. And then, the other nice thing is that when you line the trees or the streets with trees, it creates a good pedestrian environment. So it really should enhance overall the shopping experience, the driving experience. It's going to be seasonal. There's flowering plants that flower at various times, spring and summer. So we're expecting this, as it develops, to be quite a signature landscape for the city of Orem.
So the reason I had Greg come up was because there's been a lot of thought going into this landscaping plan. It's not a haphazard, let's just put trees in. This has been thought out. It's going to be a very dynamic plan, and so that's why I had Greg come up. So thank you. The Planning Commission has reviewed this and has recommended that the City Council adopt it, and so we're here to address any concerns or questions that you may have.
I was going to say, I've looked over the plan, and I've been privy to looking at the landscaping for quite a while now. I think it'll be a real beautification of the parkway. And I know in Provo, they're going to lose a bunch of trees, but they're going to have a lot of new trees added. And some of the trees they're going to lose, as I've looked at them, are old and not in good condition. So I feel like this will be a real advantage and make the parkway a really beautiful spot. So, Councilor McDonald.
Mr. Mayor, I just concur with your opinion of this, of the improvement. Also, like I'm not an expert on a lot of things, I'm not an expert on horticulture, and I'm grateful that you have people who are studying this out and getting the right trees in the right place. So I thank you for your process you're going through and the expertise that we have available.
Councilor Lentz.
So my question, again, since I'm not an expert on this, the root structure of these trees, I'm guessing the road is probably much too thick that it would be impacted by tree roots, but with the sidewalks alongside there, will these trees just go down with their roots then?
So the tree selection was specifically for that, so it won't lift the sidewalks and things going forward.
Okay.
It's interesting, the grasses that are there. I've seen these grasses in various other cities. We have some here, and they look great, particularly with other coloring grasses. Councilor Jamie.
Just to Councilmember Lentz's point, in addition to the trees, what you see underneath will be engineered soils. So that will be also a help to the trees as they grow and mature, that they're getting the adequate amount of moisture that they need to survive and thrive. And so I appreciate the attention that UTA and our staff and the architects and the landscape architects have given to this plan, because not only does it look good, but they've put a plan in place to ensure its sustainability into the future.
Thank you. Councilmember Sumner?
Yeah, I think this is a beautiful proposal. I do have a concern about the landowner or business owner is responsible for the care and the maintenance of it. That's correct?
Mm-hmm. Most of the property owners that we've talked to, like Ken Garr, for example, are actually excited to be able to maintain the trees. We've just made sure that they know that they can't cut the trees down. It's more of a maintenance issue.
Well, that's my next question. How do we monitor that?
We will monitor
with our preservation people, or
it'll probably be part of our staff that would.
Or does Jamie drive up and down the street?
We'll probably assign Jamie to go do.
Okay. Has there been any problems with that kind of thing in the past?
There has been, yes. I mean, it's a large city with a lot of public streets, and we do have issues with landscaping being modified over time. So this is a high priority for us, and we will hopefully maintain this going forward.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a public hearing. We'd like to open it up to the public at this point. If anyone would like to speak to this ordinance, please come forward, hold your comments to 3 minutes, and give us your name. Seeing as how no one is coming forward, we'll bring it back to the council. Any other comments from the council? Yes, Councilmember Lentz.
So we've talked to, I think, all of the property owners currently there. If a few years down the road they sell it off to somebody else, is there some kind of educational program, or how do we help them understand that this is their responsibility to maintain that going forward if the property changes over time?
That's something we'll just have to do, I guess, on a case by case, or we could, I guess, notify them if we're aware of a property owner selling. We notify them, but typically it's developers coming in or new owners coming in and finding out what the requirements are moving forward. So there's nothing set in place that we would notify them. Okay. The purpose for this appendix TT, though, is to have, so we could send them a specific plan, or if somebody comes in, they will have what's in front of their property, what's specifically required, along with a planting plan. So that's why we've gone to the effort to have our designers design it, so that we have something going forward that we can show them, this is what you need to maintain going forward.
So I guess if there was a situation where property changed hands, the new property owner wasn't maintaining that, does somebody reach out to the neighborhood preservation unit and then they go talk to them and then refer them back to?
It would probably be a combination of our department and neighborhood preservation to try to resolve the issue.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilmember Spencer.
So Jason, if if a tree dies, then it's still the owner's responsibility to replace?
Yes.
100%?
100%. And that's what it is currently. If a tree dies on somebody's property in a commercial zone, we expect them to replace it, and we will notify them to do so.
Well, then you better take good care of your trees.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments from the council?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Councilmember Seastrom.
Mayor and City Council, I move that we amend sections 22-8-9A, 22-11-17R, 22-11-24E, 16, 22-11-47H4, and enact Appendix T of the Orem City Code pertaining to landscaping requirements along the University Parkway corridor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilmember McDonald.
Aye.
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 Okay, the ordinance passes. Thank you. We'll now go on to item number 17, which is vacating a street, 0.15 acres of 325 West, between 1425 and 1437 North. And Jason Bench is the presenter.
Thank you. And I think Mr. Goodrich is also coming forward to address any concerns. So outlined in red, you can see the stub of the 325 West Street. This is the portion of the street that will propose to be vacated. The three property owners on either side, well, one on one side and two on the other, have agreed to the vacation. This would be basically the property from the center line on either half would go back to those property owners, so they would actually own it. Once this plat's recorded, they would own that property.
Jason, are any of the property owners here? Okay.
There's several of them back there.
Did we have you come forward and Paul, if you'd want to come forward, and then we'd like to have a couple of the property owners come forward as well.
Mayor, Mark had brought up a good point. If we have students here that need to get something signed off for an assignment, maybe we could have
That's
meet with the
Councilmember Spencer's responsibility, and he takes half the crowd out with.
Okay, I'll do it real quick.
Okay.
We're thinking of you guys, so thanks for sticking lengthy meeting.
Yeah. You thought I was kidding. No.
The police officer can do it as well. Thanks.
So as part of the, you ready to go forward?
Yes.
As part of the vacation, we've worked with the property owners. It's been almost a year that we talked to them about putting some type of chicane or mark in the street. This would be a concrete barrier with the signage that you can see outlined of this. Assuming my thing will work. Right there, that basically says from that point forward is a private street. The staff feels that there needs to be some type of demarcation between a public street and a private street, so people know that it is going from a public to a private street. So in our negotiations, the property owners did agree to do that. I understand that there's been a couple other options the last week and a half or so that the council's been aware of. Staff is supporting of this application, but we can, I guess, consider those others as well. Any questions that I can address, or maybe Paul can address as far as the proposed vacation?
Any questions from the council? Okay. Councilmember Lentz.
So we talked about this a little bit in the pre-meeting, but rough estimate about how many vehicles are we talking about traveling on this road on any given day?
5, 6.
Well, it's going to be the same vehicles. It depends on how many trips you make during a day. I mean, the national average is 10 vehicle trips per single family residence. That's 5 leaving, 5 coming back. In Orem, it's typically, more than that, 14 to 16 trips a day for a single family resident. So it's a very low volume. One of the things, though, about to me, it's really not an issue of the street volume. It has been a public street for a long time, and it will continue to look like a public street, even though it's being vacated, and we'll go through a street vacation process. And the 3 different property owners will own the street and will be responsible for maintenance and upkeep and those kind of things. Part of the in my career, my 30-year career, is that when people own streets, typically they don't like the part where it comes time to do the maintenance. Whether the maintenance is crack sealing, whether the maintenance is slurry sealing, whether the maintenance is the sidewalk is falling apart, after so many years of putting salt on it, there are sections of sidewalks that needs to be replaced. We have city crews that do that on a regular basis, whether it's grinding sidewalks or whether it's replacing sections of sidewalks and those kind of things. One of the things, too, that's helpful for people in the area is to know, okay, this is a private street. It's no longer public. So staff made the recommendation. We gave the property owners 2 different options. One option was to have a median in the center of the road so that traffic could, two-way traffic could come in around the median. And in that little median could be a sign that said private street. The other option, the second option, was the option that was shown here. And after those 3 families and those private residents looked at the 2 options, either by phone or by email, they said we prefer the one with the side. Again, one of the things about, some of the issues that I see is, for instance, the people who live in those homes, if they don't like somebody who's, if they don't want somebody parking on their street or walking on their sidewalk, they might call the police department and say, can you help us with this issue? Well, making it very obvious to the general public that it is a private street through one of these 2 options that we gave, then I think those kinds of issues are reduced. And also, if somebody comes to buy one of the homes in the future, I think it's also going to be very obvious to them, okay, this is a private street. And anyway, those are some of the issues, some of the backgrounds on why staff came up with recommendations for 2 different options. Actually, there was a different option way before those 2 options were put on the table. And if you see the kind of the curved line that demarcates where you would kind of go over to the cul-de-sac to the right, the first option that we considered, which I needed to be reminded of today, was we were talking about having sidewalk come all the way through there and then just having a driveway approach, if you will. That one was probably something that would be too cost restrictive to be able to turn it into a private street. And so that's why we came up with some very reasonable cost, what we thought were reasonable cost expenses to be able to, again, make it very plain and clear that this is a private street. And I think, again, we need to do that for many reasons, to just make it clear to the people in the area.
So I just as a follow-up to that, part of my concern with the concrete bulb out there. I'm trying to think ahead, and if we, let's say 10 years down the road, and all three of these homes happen to be under different ownership, and those three owners say, hey, we want this to go back to the city, or maybe, you know, those that are currently there just have a change of heart after realizing, you know, maybe we don't want to continue paying for the crack ceiling and all those types of things. I mean, if we just painted a white line, we're really only talking about those three homes on that part of the dead end, and then I think there's 2 homes on the cul-de-sac. So this is not a through street. We don't have, this is not something that most Orem residents or visitors to Orem will be driving on. It's pretty specific to these homes. If we decided, you know, to vacate it and make it a private road, but just to have a white line saying this is the edge of the road, having a sign saying this is a private road. If we decided later on, you know, 2 or 3 years down and say, you know, this isn't working, we do need something a little bit more permanent, would that be in our control as a city, or would they have to decide as property owners that, you know what, we do want to put in that concrete bulb out?
If I heard the question and concern correctly, yes, if that bulb out was built, we could accept it back as a public street without having to remove that bulb out. I don't know if you've ever been on 500 East south of 800 South. There's a street that it had some signs on it that says this is not a mall access. We have multiple of these bulb outs kind of down along that roadway, and they're actually bigger than these. They're longer. I think they're even a little bit wider. What we did is we took that standard and we shrunk it in size to help bring the cost down. And again, so that is a type of device that we have approved for public street uses. So whether it's public or private, the difference would be is that the sign that would be in there would be those flexible delineator posts that would be standing up, so that, you know, for instance, if it snows hard and you can't see it, well, there's the delineator that's sticking up. The other thing is the proposal would be to have the private street sign in that. The other thing too is we gave them the option of the curbing that's around the edge of that bulb out would be concrete. We gave them also the option of, you know, either filling that in with a asphalt, concrete, or even a landscaping. So, you know, for instance, if they wanted to put some landscaping, you know, anyway, there's options for what can be done with the design of that bulb out.
Sorry, I've got several follow-ups. So, I mean, if we just started with our first crack at it to say, let's just try a painted white line, or even if it was just a painted white bulb out there, that's not a very permanent solution. If you decide later, you know, that's not working, we can just add in that concrete bulb out later. But if you add the concrete bulb out, is it as simple as just taking it out, or would that portion of the road need to be rebuilt if we decided to go with just painted lines?
If we wanted to take the bulb out, I personally, I don't see why we would want to take it out, even if it did become a public street again. My recommendation would be to leave it there. I don't think it has to be pulled out. I think I think it could be, but yes, that part of the road would have to be reconstructed where the bulb out came out, if that was the choice that was made. And one of the things.
Go ahead.
One of the things about, you know, demarking it with paint is, for instance, you know, if you were a snowplow driver and, you know, that paint's going to be covered with snow and you're going to be driving down that street and you're not going to know that, okay, where does the private street start and where does it end? It helps demark it so that street sweepers, snowplow drivers, people who are filling potholes, people who are doing crack seals, it's kind of like, you know, and if the paint, you know, even if it's not covered with snow, if the paint wears off and it's not maintained, it's one of those things that in a year or two, people are going to look at the street and they're just going to, if they don't see the sign on behind the sidewalk, they're just, I mean, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, people think that it's a duck. So that's why staff made the recommendation and again gave the options of either this side bulb out or something in the middle of the street. I think we got a recommendation from a council member, or maybe it was someone else, that said, hey, I've seen some private streets before where there's something in the center of the road. And so again, that was one of the options that we gave to the 3 homeowners in the area was something in the middle. Because I think one of the concerns is how many vehicles can you park on the side of the road? And that was one of the concerns with the side bulb out. Well, with the center, then you're not taking any of that curb area.
So we have another question from Councilmember Spencer.
So Jason, going on the lines of what Mr. Lentz was saying, so could you require that they paint the line every year to keep it so it doesn't fade? Or
I guess you could ask them to do that. Once you vacate it, it's vacated, and we wouldn't have any requirements or ability to go on and paint it.
I mean, just if I was in this situation, like I said, I have a lot of steel wheels, and I could always make a sign and have it rolled out in the middle, and then if it snowed, I could roll it out, and so it'd be in the middle of the street, so people could know, hey, this says it's a private drive. To me, that would be less costly, and maybe better for.
And that's definitely an option, I guess. But I guess if the homeowner decides he's tired of doing that and doesn't do it again, then I guess you're left with no markings or no signs.
And then one question would be, would they be able to contract with the city to do the slurry or the?
I guess they could pay for it, yeah.
The tar, whatever it is.
Yes, we do have a program in the city currently that for any private street in the city that is open for public travel, that we help them up to 30% of the costs. They do have to get 3 bids. They have to use approved contractors.
It would be a reimbursement type thing?
It is a reimbursement type thing. They pay for all of the costs up front, and then we reimburse them up to 30%. If, again, they've entered into a contract with us and shown us the 3 bids before they do the work.
And there's a set amount of money that the city has, right? So once the money's gone, then...
And once the money's gone, then for that year, then, there's no assistance. A few years ago, we were in a budget situation where we were not able to allow any assistance. So it's one of those programs that might, although it's here today, it might be gone tomorrow. Again, one of the things that staff thought about is, yes, we would like to keep the costs low to be able to have the initial installation of this. But I think in my opinion, if we're really worried about the approximately $2,500 or less installation of this bulb out, I don't think they're going to be able to afford the future street maintenance costs. That's one of the concerns that I have. So if we're fixating on that, we're really not looking far enough into the future to see, okay, are they really going to be able to afford to maintain this private street?
Okay, so this is a public hearing. We'd like to open it up to the public. Anyone who would like to talk about this, please come to the podium, hold your comments to 3 minutes, and give us your name.
Hi, my name is Lene Millett, and I just wanted to come speak tonight and give you a little background on this issue. After the City Council voted unanimously to keep the fence closed at the end of 325 West, the Moss, Conrad, and Johnson families desired to pursue an option that would make that decision permanent. I was asked to assist them in this issue. We were told that creating a strip of private property along the fence line would solve that issue, and were advised that we could accomplish that by asking Orem City to vacate a part of the street. In these cases, typically a 2 to 4 foot strip along the fence line would accomplish that. We continued with that effort, but then were told by Orem City staff that this type of action was called a nuisance strip, and Orem City no longer approved nuisance strips because they could be used to hold ransom undeveloped property adjacent to the nuisance strip. Instead, Orem City said they required that the entire street in front of Jovi Moss's and Pat Conrad's and the Johnson's house be vacated to them and turned back over to them. This would mean all of them would need to agree to accept the liability, responsibility, and future costs to maintain that entire strip of road. Personally, I think that was a huge compromise for the homeowners to agree to. This small dead-end residential road is not strategically located near vacant land and in no way would have created a hardship for any landowner's future development. But the homeowners acquiesced and, in the spirit of compromise, agreed to vacating the entire section of the street. However, as we proceeded working towards bringing this issue to resolution, we received a surprising email last spring which stated city staff wanted us to prepare construction drawings to construct curb, gutter, drive-over sidewalk, and design a storm drainage plan and include 2 storm drain inlet boxes, storm drain pipe, pre-treatment snout, and an injection pump to facilitate storm water from removal from the roadway vacation area. Our engineer said that it would cost around $20,000 to $30,000 to fulfill this request from the city. We expressed our dissatisfaction with this option, and city staff then told us that it was our option, that option, or the concrete choker option. Not $30,000, but still a large sum of about $3,000, including the engineering costs. Because of numerous issues, this action sat for about a year. Jovi Moss, who currently lives back east, called me in March and asked me if I would assist her in bringing this issue to the city council and help to get it resolved. I approached Jason Bench in March, and he kindly worked with me on what we needed to do to proceed forward. During our conversations, I asked Jason if we could present other options. I understood him to say that the city would be presenting the concrete choker option, and we could present other options. We then had our engineer prepare option 2 and option 3, which I believe were all emailed to you, the city council members. I apologize to the city staff if there was a misunderstanding, but we are here tonight to ask you to approve option 3. We believe this is the best option for this street.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak?
Hi, my name is Pat Conrad. My husband Paul and I reside at 1428 North, 325 West. On behalf of my husband, we appreciate the opportunity to express our views and concerns for the street where our home sits. When we bought our home, June of 2015, the main reason was that it was on a dead-end street. My husband has dementia, and it would be a much safer and a more secure area for him than an open street. There would be little or no traffic, both vehicle and foot. Now, with the designation of a private drive, we would desire it to be the least obstructive and the least expensive. We desire option number 3. It isn't a very big area. We have garbage trucks and delivery trucks and mail deliveries. They need the room to pull in and turn around to go back out. All of us in this area have a lot of families, and when they come, they need the space to park. We hope the area can remain a safe area for all who chose to live there. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jovi Moss. I live right at the end of the dead end, and the only people that go to our area it's not a true street, and so really the people that will come to our area are the people that live in my house and the Johnsons and the Conrads. This is not a through street, and so there's really no need for this big sign that says you can't go through. And if they go through, there is a fence, can't. So they will turn around on the cul-de-sac. I don't see any reason why we should spend so much money telling the public private. We are not that kind of people that would say, don't park. Surely we live in a city that is kind to other people who may make a mistake. And so I suggest option number 3, the least expensive and the least cumbersome is what I would call it, to us and to the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cherie Thurston. I'm getting over my allergies. I think the mayor might be having some too, but I could be wrong. Let me thank you for your service. Having been there, I know the hours and the time you put in, and I appreciate the opportunity that you've taken to serve our community. I saw this project almost 15 years ago when I was on the council have a challenge. And then about 7 years ago, I met the lady, Josephine Moss, and we served together in a position. And when it came up a couple years ago, she came to me and asked me to come. It's interesting because I've learned a lot tonight. I thought I understood it all, the cities and the neighbors. And I can see some good points that were made. Not an easy thing to do, but I would like to say that I really, and having gone to this home many times, I really don't think there are much traffic because it's only 2 houses and you can see the fence. At night, if you've got lights, you can see. I just don't know that there's going to be a lot of traffic that way. I would hope that the third option with a sign that states it and putting something on the ground, yes, it will be covered sometimes with the snow that we have. But I think that would be a good option. These people don't want to go through another 2 city councils that they've been through on this issue, and this is the only way to maybe stop that from having to come again, because you can't say once you make a decision, that's a decision for life. Thank you so much for your good and careful consideration.
Thank you. Nice to see you here. Appreciate it. Question.
Oh, sorry. I just have a quick question for Paul.
Goodrich.
There's the voice up there.
No, a bulb out, is that so that there's more visibility on the sign, or is it just to draw people's attention that this is something's different?
Both. And again, it's not an issue of how much traffic is on the street. There's no problem with the reason for the bulb out is not for that. Again, it's to draw attention to people that this is no longer a public street.
Okay.
I mean, if you were to go down there and visit someone, let's say, who lived in the cul-de-sac or just north on the street, if there's not something that clearly demarks that this is a private street now, you're not going to know that just with a sign that's maybe behind the sidewalk, and your cone of vision, you kind of have to, look much over to the side. One of the things that I've learned in my 30-year career is that people don't typically know what the signs on this side of the street say. And I could give you lots of different instances where people have talked to me about that. Unless you're looking for a speed limit sign or unless you're looking for an address sign, most of the people don't see a sign on the side of the road. So what we're trying to do here again with staff, and it's not just me, I was counting in my mind the different staff members that I've worked with in trying to coordinate this issue, and I think there's at least 7 of us that have kind of been trying to rack our brains on how to basically be able to tell people, okay, this is not a public sidewalk. This is not a public street where you can park if you can't find, if you're celebrating somebody's birthday just north of here and you can't fit in front of their property. You can't park here. You can't walk on this sidewalk. It's going to help our police department. It's going to help our maintenance people. It's not a traffic issue. Let's clearly define where there's a private street and where there's a public street.
Thank you.
All right, so please go ahead.
Thank you. City Council, good evening. My name is Georgia Omer. I live right there. I'm right on the edge of where this private street marker would be. And we've lived there for 30 years. First of all, thank you for your service, and especially to those of you that drove by. I saw many of you and waved. I thought, why is she waving at me? We wave at everybody. So we saw you come down and take a look, so we appreciate that. My request is for option 3, the painting on the street and the yard sign. First of all, let us note that same exact method was used recently on 1600 North and 400 West, where we have that crazy race in now right on the end of our street. And it does notify many drivers. So signs on the street and the painting on the road notify everyone on 1600 North of streets, what's going on in the street. So I think it would work beautifully on this small dead-end street. Now, I truly believe the option 3 is the best way. In my job at Alpine School District, I visit and observe classrooms and teachers regularly. I go to Orchard Elementary at least once a month, and those crazy pop-outs, I don't know that they're any better because I see people hit them all the time. And I don't know why it's such a problem, but they're hit all the time. So I don't know that that is a good idea either. So I'm just going to say, for some of us, saying it's more visible to drivers, I don't know. I don't know that it's more visible. But we have special needs students that live on the end of these streets. We have district buses that pick them up. And they do a marvelous job of turning around those big buses. And taking away any more space could be tricky for those bus drivers. We want them to be able to do their job efficiently and effectively. The same with our wonderful garbage drivers that come down, and our recycling trucks. They do a great job of turning, but we cannot take away any more space. Now, 3 of us have large RVs down there and use that space to turn as well. So again, the best option is option 3. We think it would make it very visible, the difference between a public and a private street, with painting on the road and a street sign. We appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make a comment? Seeing no one else is going to make a comment, we'll bring it back to the council. I'd just like to make mention a couple of things. First of all, there is a third homeowner in this small little area, and that's Ed and Donna Johnson. And they called me and spoke with me, and they are in favor of option 3 as well. As I looked at the streets along 1600 North, there is a street going the other way from what you just described at 50 East, and that is also a private drive. The way that's marked is 2 signs that say private drive, no through traffic. And so I'm familiar with how those things work, and I would recommend option 3 as well. So Dave Spencer?
I think Tom first.
Okay. Councilmember McDonald?
Paul, question for you. Is it possible to just vacate? I mean, the whole reason they want this vacated is to not be here 15 years later and ask if there's going to be a thoroughfare. Is it possible to only vacate 5 feet of it right next to that, just on the far south end of the street, instead of doing as much as you're just doing 5 feet of it, and then there's really no need? Is that possible, or am I being too simple?
From what I remember in working with the different staff members that I talked to you about, if I'm remembering correctly, Steve Earle recommended against that because it's a current city policy not to do those, what he calls a protection strip.
Okay. I think he's here.
Bill?
Oh, there he is.
He was hoping to go unnoticed all evening, but here he is.
Chasing ghosts.
Yeah, please, Bill.
If I could, just to clarify that a little bit. Basically, it's been mentioned by the neighbors. This is a dead-end road where it's not a proper turnaround like we typically do in developments. So when this came to us to be vacated, it was basically I told the staff that if we're going to vacate this road, let's make it a safe road. And hence, that's why we went there. So when the car comes down, they will be able to turn around in the existing cul-de-sac and not have to go down there and back up and shift around and go back. So it's a safer road instead of just doing a nuisance strip.
Okay, Councilmember Spencer.
My question was the same thing as Tom, so I'm good.
Councilmember Lentz.
So I think I'd be in favor of option 3, but perhaps for a different reason. If I remember right, as I was driving down there, isn't there a dead end sign before? You might know better. Isn't there a dead end sign before you even pull into that street? So if I'm a driver pulling into a street that has already notified me this is a dead end, I probably already slowed down. I'm expecting the road to end pretty soon. So I might already be looking for that, private drive type sign once I get to that point. But the reason that I'm thinking option 3 might be the best compromise is I I respect the courage of these homeowners to take on that responsibility of maintaining the road, but I'm not sure if the next homeowners will have that same desire. And I'm not sure if that would potentially impact their ability to resell the home or anything like that, but I would imagine that some homeowners might kind of frown at the idea of, well, I have to maintain this road. So, maybe 80 years down the road, we have a different situation, different owners, and they want to, maybe it's not 80 years, that might be an exaggeration, but at some future point, you might have owners that no longer want that to be a private road. And so I like the idea of just having to remove a little white line of paint as opposed to having to remove the concrete bulb out and then rebuild the road in that portion. So I understand the staff's perspective where it really is a better design, but I think it might be making a mountain out of a molehill considering how minor of a problem I see this being, where it's just 3 homes in that little road and then 2 homes in the cul-de-sac where they're already in a dead-end street.
Councilmember Sumner.
When we're only dealing with 3 homeowners here, I wonder, Mr. Bell, was what you just said, I mean, it makes sense, but was it communicated to our neighbors, or were they in agreement? I mean, they have to live with this, and down the road in 8 years, no one knows. I mean, you could be moved tomorrow, but so I don't know if that's a real big concern. But I guess my question it seems to be a communication problem here with the homeowners, and option 3 looks pretty simple to me, and I can't see why we can't do that.
Well, to clarify that, a year ago when we came to a conclusion of this design, they did all agree to it. These option 2 and 3 that you received a week and a half ago, we didn't receive it until today. So you may want to explain what option 3 is, so everybody would know exactly what you're talking about. But this was agreed upon a year ago. So the fact that they've changed their mind or they've come up with a different option, that's new to us. That's not, as of today. So.
Do you have that on your? I mean, could you just pull option 3 up on your screen? Do you have a copy?
I don't have it here. I've got it on my email.
We don't have.
That's fine. We can mention what it is. Councilmember Spencer.
So Jason, Paul, since this road is not going anywhere, Amron Village is right behind it, would it be an option to put a sidewalk at the very end, and then you could put private sidewalk? To me, that might be easier than. Yeah, but it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go through.
Sidewalk at the end of what?
Right here on the very end where the fence is.
Sidewalk going parallel to the fence?
Uh-huh.
Sidewalks.
Yeah, can.
Well, it's a private, so I guess they could if they wanted to.
But
The city's not.
you'd only be vacating 5 feet. You wouldn't vacate the whole street.
Oh, put a public sidewalk and then vacate it?
No. That'd be a private sidewalk because you're going to vacate 5 feet of the.
Yeah, well, we're creating a 5-foot nuisance strip, and that's what we don't typically like to see in the city. We try to avoid.
It might be a good nuisance strip in that.
It potentially
in that road.
Potentially could. I mean, the whole purpose of this vacation is to prohibit some future possible issue with Amron Village. I mean, that's the whole point of this. So whether it makes sense to vacate the whole street and have the owners take responsibility, that's the question as well. I mean, if it's worth that, then I guess we vacate it. But I guess that's the whole premise of this vacation, and they're taking on that responsibility for the future potential of not having a gate in Amron Village. That's the whole.
So I would like to make a motion, if I could. I'd like to move by ordinance that the City Council by ordinance vacate approximately 0.15 acres at 325 West Street, located between 1425 and 1437 North, as shown in Exhibit A of the resolution, and that a sign be put up that states private drive, residents only on one side, and that the street be painted from the one home to the other, and that the city retain a public utility easement and an easement in favor of the City of Orem for sewer, water, and storm drain. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Seastrand.
Aye.
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 Okay, the ordinance passes. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to a resolution approving a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit on 400 East from 1600 North to Center Street and on 400 South from 1200 West to 1830 West, the City of Vineyard limits. Paul Goodrich is our presenter.
Thank you. We have two different locations where we'd like to request the speed limit be raised from 25 to 30 miles per hour. The first location is on 400 East from 1600 North to Center Street. The request for the raise in the speed limit initiated with some meetings that were held with the Orem North and Sharon Park neighborhoods. Now there was, again, I think we've mentioned this, is there was not a complete agreement from people in those neighborhoods to raise the speed limit, but there was enough interest in it to make a request that a study be done and take a look at the options for raising the speed limit on that street. The second location is 400 South. That is from 1200 West to the Vineyard town limits. That request was initiated by the town of both the town of Vineyard and Vineyard Elementary School. Some of the information you can see, we did the study to find out what the operating speeds on the street were. We took the information to the Transportation Advisory Commission to share that with them and get a recommendation from them from the City Council. You can see basically we got speed data between 2000 North in Orem down to Center Street. You can see the red numbers are what we call the 85th percentile speed. Basically what that means is that 15% of the traffic is driving faster than what's typed in red in those different segments, and 85% of the traffic is either driving at or below that speed. The numbers typed in blue are what the average speed on the street is. So you can kind of see, if you will, that when people are driving on those streets, that's kind of what they feel is a safe and reasonable speed for that street. The Institute of Transportation Engineers recommends that when you look at setting a speed limit for the street, you consider first, is it a good and safe thing to follow the 85th percentile speed and post what that speed limit would be? If we blindly followed that recommendation, we'd probably be posting that section of 400 East for 35 miles an hour. However, when staff took a look at, okay, what are the conditions on the street? What type of a street is it? What functional classification is it? Does it have on-street parking? How many accesses on there? So on and so forth. Where are the schools located? We recommended that we have a 30 mile an hour speed limit, closer to what the average speed is on the street for different reasons. One, it is a functional classification. It's an urban collector. If you compare that, for instance, to 800 East or 1600 North, they're basically about the same width of street. They typically have about the same amount of asphalt width. The difference is, though, is that most of this section of 400 East doesn't have a center turn lane, and it has bicycle lanes on it. And 800 East and 1600 North are classified as arterial streets, and this has a lower classification as an urban collector. So both the staff and the Transportation Advisory Commission are recommending a 30 mile an hour speed limit on that street. A little bit more information, you may remember years ago the city raised the speed limit on 800 East from 25 to 35. The staff did the same analysis before. We looked at the average speeds, the 85th percentile speeds. The recommendation at that time, because again, it's classified as an arterial street, it has a 3-lane cross-section, parking, all of that, it was raised to 35. The after data was so close to the before data, it's basically people didn't change their patterns. The biggest changes was at Cascade Elementary School. The operating speed actually went down there. Now, we don't know exactly why, but an educated guess would be, since residents probably felt that if there was a more reasonable speed on the entire length of the street, as they're driving by an elementary school, it's like, okay, maybe this is a place where I need to slow down. That's just an educated guess. Anyway, part of our plan would be to do the same thing if the approval is to go to 30 miles an hour here, is we do an after study and we compare it, we bring that information back to you.
We have a question for you, if that's all right. Councilmember Seastrand.
How does the effective consistency, 30 is kind of an odd number. We're used to 35 on some, and we're 25. 30 is kind of an interesting number. And the reason I ask is my daughter's got her learner's permit, and she's always asking me, Dad, what's the speed limit on this road? And I can say, okay, you have neighborhoods, it's 25, but this kind of fouls that up. And not saying that that's bad, because I understand where you're going from, but how does that impact, especially the other connecting roads? What's the speed limit of 2000 North and 1600 North? Are those?
2000 North is at 25.
Okay.
Again, we've had multiple requests in the past from residents, from the city of Linden, to raise the speed limit there, because again, it's a wider road. It has that higher functional classification. Now, one of the things that
So why don't we do that on 2000 North?
We're going to do it.
I think, my recommendation, the Transportation Advisory Commission asked the same question. They came up with a dozen streets. It's like, Paul, why don't we raise the speed limit here also? It's kind of like, okay, let's just take baby steps.
You understand my purpose, though, is that looking at this as 30.
Let me try to answer.
You look at 2000 North, and what about, so 800 North obviously is big. What about 600 North and 400 North?
Yeah, again,
those are all 25.
If you look at the different streets and what they're intended to do, and what functional classification they have, the speed limit kind of increases with the width of the street. Is it an urban collector? Is it an arterial? What kind of uses are on the street? And you can post speed limits in 5 mile an hour increments. But so 30 miles an hour was what was recommended for 400 East because of its specific characteristics. Now, staff recommended keeping north of 1600 North at 25 miles an hour, though. Now, typically, you want to change the speed limit at a major road. And you want to put up a sign that lets people know what that change is. And you typically don't want to just have a speed limit for a short section of road. You want a much longer section of road so that you can have some consistency. The reason that staff recommended keeping north of 1600 North at 25 miles an hour is there's a pretty big wowie in the road north of there. And there's a lot of front-facing homes north of 1600 North, but between 1600 North and 1200 North, there's no front-facing homes. They're all side or rear. Also, there have been a couple of accidents. Most of them have been weather-related in that S-curve wowie that's just north of 2000. So again, because of some of the history and the characteristics of the road, we're just recommending to go to 30 from 1600 North to Center Street. But again, and then to the mayor's point is that when we come back with the after data, and if it shows that the speed limit is kind of set for what the reasonable person would drive, then we might come back and raise the speed limit on other streets like 2000 North and other locations.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the council?
I'll make a comment.
Okay.
I'll make a comment. The one thing I liked about this recommendation on the one on 400 East is that it did come from our neighborhood plan, and I'm not sure which neighborhood plan it was, but this was a recommendation that came from the neighborhood plan. And so there was public input, and there was even talk of raising it to 35, some of the transportation committee, but 30 seems like a reasonable compromise, taking the recommendations of the neighborhood as well as the advisory transportation, which I sit on. So I wholeheartedly think this is a great idea.
Since you live in that area, would you care to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we raise the posted speed limit from 25 to 30 miles per hour on 400 East from 1600 North to Center Street, and on 400 South from 1200 West to 1830 West, City of Vineyard limits.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Let's go ahead and vote. Councilmember Seastrand?
I'll vote aye.
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 Okay, the ordinance passes.
Can I make one point?
Thank you, Paul.
The intersection of 4th South, or of 4th North and 4th West East, is the stop signs are a little hard to see. Is that something you guys can look at for me?
The stop signs are what?
Hard to see. I don't know if we can do some flashing stuff, one of those little flashing lights on.
4th North and 4th East?
By the church?
I will write down a note.
Just take a look at it for me.
Talk to Keith Larson.
I saw an accident there that was
first thing in the morning.
Okay. Not tonight, huh? No, you're fine.
I don't know if it's still up.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, we'll go on to item number 19, which is to approve the amounts to be awarded to the CARE grant recipients for the 2017 CARE granting round. Our presenter is Steve Downs.
Thanks, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to discuss the CARE allocation. Just as a little bit of background, we have a 50-50 split between recreation and arts. We project just over $2 million to be available this year, which is what's collected during the current year and then spent in the following year, which leaves just over $1 million available for each of the two groupings. As far as number of applicants, we had 15 mini applicants, 5 mid-majors, 3 majors, and 3 facilities. I won't read the names, but there's our CARE Advisory Commission, who did a great job over the course of the last few months, meeting with each of these organizations, hearing their presentations, and making some difficult decisions about how to split up obviously limited resources to these all, again, deserving organizations. The process was we met twice to hear all of the presentations from the mini and mid-majors, and all of them qualify for funding. So they're all eligible to have CARE funding. On the 25th, the majors presented to the City Council, or had the opportunity to have the reports heard and then answer questions from the City Council. We discussed a proposal, and then, as you know, earlier today we had an opportunity to continue to that discussion of the proposal, and that some of those changes are reflected in this presentation, but not reflected in your agenda packets because we hadn't had that discussion yet. As far as the recreation goes, over the last few years, we've been studying the recreation needs. A survey was done on asking citizens how they'd like to see the recreation money spent. And this year, we just have one application, and that's requesting funding for the fitness center for future improvements. That is the entire recreation amount, $1,009,625. I won't read all of them for time, but these are the awards for the mini and mid-majors. You've had, of course, opportunities to look over those, so if there's any questions, I'm happy to take those. But the total between the mini and mid-majors is $60,000, and that's a reduction of about $16,500 from last year's allocation to the same group. There's 4 proposals that have been discussed for the major and facility allocation. Proposal A, as you see, awards Hale Center Theater $300,000, Utah Regional Ballet $20,000, the Sarah $500,000, leaving $34,880 for the library auditorium, $10,000 for the, I apologize, and I was throwing this together. Or no, this is the original proposal. $10,000 for the Arts Council, public art, $10,000 for public art in the library, and then $74,745 for facility funding that could be spent however the City Council desires. A second proposal has Hale Center Theater at $325,000, Utah Regional Ballet at $26,000, the Sierra at $525,000, with the same $34,880 to the library auditorium, $5,000 to each for the Arts Council public art, and then $5,000 for the public art in the library. And in both of those cases, they would be permanent art located within recreation or, well, likely arts facilities or areas.
Who makes the decision on the art selected for those 2 grants?
Yeah, I mean, likely, you know, there'd be the opportunity for the Arts Council, of course, to weigh in on the Arts Council.
For both of them?
And the library advisory group, probably for the library. But of course, we could, there's no clear, procedure for that.
Okay,
so we can discuss that further. Let's see. Proposal C has $325,000 to the Hale, $20,000 to the Utah Regional Ballet, $535,000 to the Sierra, the $34,880 to the Library Auditorium, $5,000 to each of those 2 public art projects, and $24,745 for the facility additional facility funding. Proposal D has Hale Center at $315,000, Utah Regional Ballet at $20,000, $520,000 for the Sierra, and then the same for the auditorium, $5,000 for the Arts Council public art, $4,000 for the public art in the library, and the remaining $50,745 for the facility funding. So those are the 4 proposals that were discussed in previous public meetings and are before you today. Of course, all of those could be, those could be changed to a 5th proposal if it's the will of the council.
So any comments or questions by the council? Councilmember Seastrand.
A couple of procedural questions from that standpoint. We had talked about the library auditorium that we allocate the funds, or at least we designate them there, but then that they would be allocated after there's been a more clear definition of that. Do we need to do any more to clarify that, or is that a viable assumption for what we've talked about?
Yeah, I believe we can do that. The things we talked about was having opportunity to see more of these auditoriums and really understand the full needs.
We could put that in the motion.
That's one of the contingencies. The other thought I had was finding permanent art for $4,000 or $5,000. I think may be a little limiting. I wouldn't mind seeing that amount combined and suggest that those two organizations work together to make a decision. That if they do find something that's 4 and 5, great. But if they find something that's 9,000 or 10, whatever the amounts are,
okay,
that they collaborate to say this would be a really nice structural art. I just don't think you're going to get much for $4,000 in terms of statuary. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I would just like to mention that can you go back to D, if you would? Okay, thank you. I feel like it's important that we support the Hale and the Sarah and the Regional Ballet. They do wonderful jobs. It's interesting. I was watching a program and they were talking about how while we have objects or things we remember, the things that we really remember are experiences. And the experiences that you get through these kinds of theater and ballet are just immeasurable, and I think they're excellent. I look forward to the idea on the library auditorium that, as Councilmember Seastrand has mentioned, that we hold that money until we decide how we want to spend it going forward. Sorry, those are my comments. Councilmember Lentz?
So I like some of the themes in Proposal A and Proposal D. One of the things I just wanted to point out, if we looked at the grant everybody received last year compared to this year, everybody took a haircut. It's difficult because these are all very deserving organizations who do amazing things in our community. The problem is we have a limited amount of dollars to allocate to these different programs. So that's part of the challenge. And as we worked with the CARE committee that was looking at this, that was one of the things that we looked at is, essentially everybody is feeling a little bit of the pain, but how do we balance that out? And I did want to point out that Sarah, so for Proposal D, it looks on this screen as if that reduction is it's almost $10,000. But if you look at the facility funding with the Sarah Shell is leased to, so it's property that's owned by the city. And what are the terms of the lease? What do we lease that out for?
$1 a year for 100 years.
Okay, so it for all intents and purposes, it's a free service that's provided to that facility, but they operate it. But it is a city asset that we have a responsibility to care for and maintain. And so while on the surface this might look like Sarah's getting a cut just like everybody else, I view this as they're getting an increase of about $40,000, because that would be if that facility funding were to go to the Sarah Shell. Could you pull up the survey results from, and I'm looking on page 15. So this is the survey that was done in the fall of last year, just to get a sense of how citizens of Orem felt this money should be allocated based off of how they value these different programs. Because part of my reservation as I was new to the council last year, my impression, both participating in the council and observing as I was preparing to run for the city council, was that we go through this song and dance, we go through this whole process, and at the end of the day, the actual decision comes down to how 7 people feel about it. And it was much more, that was the one, yeah. To me, it came across as much more of an emotional decision rather than let's get the data and let that drive. And not that we just take the data that's on this slide and we just multiply that by whatever the dollar amount is. But I did find it very telling as we asked this question to the survey participants, if you could allocate $100 of care tax funds, to what programs would you allocate it? And the number 1 and number 2 items on here were the auditorium and improving Sarah Shell. And I understand that sometimes we have emotional ties to certain programs and there's sentimental value and things. But as we're representing the people of Orem, I really value having this kind of data available so that we can understand, if we have this money available, where would the citizens of Orem like that to go? So I'm hesitant to take away too much from the auditorium or improvements to the Sarah Shell when those were, by a pretty large margin in the case of the auditorium. That's really where that scientific survey indicated citizens of Orem want to invest.
Any other comments? You want to make a comment? Go ahead.
Can you pull up C, Stephen? Yeah, I suggested this one, and the reason I've got the Sarah at 535 and the Hale at 325, yeah, I do have a emotional touch to them, and I think the track record of both of them, especially the Sarah, over the last 80 years, has proven to touch more people and citizens of Orem than any other organization tenfold. And I think legacy is important, but you can build legacy with helping people. And I don't want to reduce the programming of the Sarah, and that's why it's about close to a little higher than last year. but I don't want to reduce that. And Hale does a wonderful job. Yes, I'm emotionally tied to both of them, but they're one of the big producers in the city of Orem, and you go by the Sarah, and almost every day you see a bus full of kids dropped off and participating in the Sarah programs. You have a tremendous Shell program coming up. It's unbelievable what they do down there, and yeah, I'm probably tied to them a little emotionally, but I want them to continue at a current pace and even better pace with programming.
Thank you, Councilmember Spencer.
Can you go to proposal D? So I think that if we have a combination between C and D, I think I could probably be okay with that.
Did you say between C and D?
Right. The Sarah up to 525, and that would pull the facility funding down to 745, and I think I could live with that. You still have money set aside for $45,000 for the Sarah Shell and the auditorium.
So that change, just that one, the 5,000.
Right, to 525.
Okay, Councilmember Seastrand.
The thing I like about Proposal D is the facility funding has a bucket there that we could later go back and reallocate to some of the other organizations. So for me, I think Proposal D gives a nice, it's above the 300, 520, or the 500. It gets them up a little bit. Still keeps a little bit in reserve that we can accomplish a couple of other priorities. And for me, the priorities, besides getting as much funding as we can to our organizations, which is a key factor of the care tax, is I believe there's a need to figure out a solution to the library auditorium, and so I do believe we need to figure out the funding on that. So I'm good with the library auditorium proposed award for the 34,000. I believe the opportunity to improve the Sarah Shell is an important aspect that I've heard some positive feedback. However, I don't know that there's been much discussion on what that means. So in my mind, there's a priority to say we need to figure something out there and see what seems to make sense. So having some funding available to take a look at it, that gives us a little bit of funding to work with it and to try to do some studies and try to see what the possibilities would be. And if we come back and say that, it's not going to work, then we still have some funding there that we could go ahead and reallocate to the other organizations. I have one question on one of the objectives we were trying to do to help these organizations was to give more indication of a long-term stance. And I know we can't bind future councils, but I do think from a financing, from a funding, from a fundraising standpoint, if that's kind of where the 300,000 and the 500,000 came from, was to say, is there some lower limit that we could somewhat indicate to say, we would like to give you something you can plan on, or at least identify something. I'm not sure if that's feasible. I'm not sure if that's the right, if there's a way to include it in there, but I think that was part of our effort to help these organizations have some better long-term planning to say that stuff you can plan on and kind of work into it. But I don't remember what the decision was or what we were able to do on that, Jamie. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
I know there was an interest on the part of staff to kind of build that expectation. Going forward, the care tax does sunset, and so I'm not sure it is reasonable to essentially speak to anything longer than 7 or 8 years, because that's the remaining time with the care tax. But I think the intent has always been to continue to work with our core partners. Again, the concern that I have always had as city manager is the expectation is this is the care program, not the card program. It's an enhancement program, not a dependency program. And so ideally, I would love to see award amounts change to reflect greater independence and separation from the city, thereby allowing the city to dedicate these obviously very scarce resources to other uses. However, at the same time, I don't think that can be accomplished in just one simple year. But to move in that direction, I think, is what I would encourage you to consider. And I think it was in that spirit that the $300,000 and the $500,000 amounts were recommended to you.
Thank you.
Councilor Lentz.
Jamie and maybe Stephen, could you give us some sense of if that, according to Proposal D, it's 50,000, I think A was at 75,000. What could that accomplish if we were to dedicate all of that to the Sarah shell? So would that be just doing a study and maybe some plans and engineering, or would that actually be installing some permanent seating?
I wouldn't anticipate that the money that we would set aside would go to anything but, assessment and potentially design of changes for the future. I don't think any of this money could reasonably go to capital or any significant capital. So yeah, I would see it more as money set aside for assessment of the facility, engineering, architectural discussions, that sort.
So do you see a significant difference between having 50,000 set aside for that versus 70 or 75,000?
Honestly, I would think that 50,000 is sufficient to do that. But again, we haven't done this, and so I would be more secure knowing if we had some more money, because some of these studies, we go into these studies and we think 35,000 will be sufficient, and we go through a bid process and it comes back at 70, and you wonder, well, okay, now we got to find an additional 50%. But I think 50 is a good starting point and would get us down the road. I don't anticipate any of that money being able to dedicate to any brick and mortar type activity.
Okay. I think, sorry, just want to follow up. I think my only concern at this point with Proposal D would be we're taking just a little bit away from Sarah. We're taking quite a bit more away from Hale Center. But then the Sarah could potentially also benefit in the future quite a bit from the facility funding. So I'm not sure if there's any data to suggest that we do need to shift money away from Hale Center, for example, to the Sarah, or if it just comes back to the emotional tie discussion. But as I was looking through the survey results, in my mind, it seemed like in fact, Stephen, could you pull up, let me see, it was on slide 11 and 12, really. And and this is just my take is that.
Make sure I just don't have the numbers the same way you do. So is this the right?
Oh, sorry, I think it's the one right before this. Yep. So essentially what they valued the most in ranking projects was the quality and the appeal of the project. And I think both of those organizations do an incredible job. Where Hale Center is more of a semi-professional performance venue, I think they might have just a slight edge on there, whereas where the Sarah really excels is on the reach, participation, and affordability, which is still very important to Orem residents, but just didn't rank quite as high on their scale. So that would just be my concern if the data is suggesting that we value these things more, but how we're allocating dollars is actually the opposite of that.
Councilmember McDonald.
I know we have a few recipients out there, as well as people who've spent a lot of time, and I think all of these try to pay attention to the fact that the citizens voted and now entrust us with the distribution of a lot of money. And this is probably some of the more emotional money that we spend. And it is a smaller pot. For those who might be here and may not know that, it used to be distributed 75% to the arts and only 25% to recreation. And a few years ago when this was changed, it went 50-50 between the arts and the recreation. So I do like the fact that the citizens have spoken, granted not all of them, but a significant statistical sample in these in the study, the survey that was done, and I think we do need to listen to them. If you'll flip back now and show me Proposal A, which was the initial proposal, what I don't want to have is what Mr. Davison said, is we went in and thought that 35 would be enough and then find out we not have enough. And so my support for Proposal A was not that we spend all the $129,625 on the other things, but that we have the pot available, and if we have a potential for additional distribution, we do it in 6 months and reevaluate it. So I think I've made this clear in the pre-meeting. I would be supportive of Proposal A, which gives a lot of money, and I support it with additional money as I go to an auction. Thankfully, I was out of town and saved myself a lot of money this year, Adam. I'm sorry, but in future years, as I go to these and my wife assures me we're not going to spend anything, and then I spend a lot before we get home, I'm really grateful for the way what they provide for the community, and I think it's the Hale and the Sierra that people voted for the care tax for, and yet the survey said, yeah, we'd also like that library auditorium done. So I would preserve a little bit more money for the next 3 to 4 months and then allocate. So I would support Proposal A with the understanding that they may get a second tranche during the year.
Thank you. Councilmember Spencer.
I'd like to make a motion that we go with option D at $315 for the Hale, $20,000 for the Ballet, and $25,000 for the Sarah.
Instead of 520, you'd go down to 25,000.
525.
Didn't say the 5. I was
Sorry,
teasing you.
525.
And take that out of the 50.
Yes, so it'd be down to 45,000 for the pot.
Okay. Is there a second?
Can you put that up there so we?
It's there. The only difference
Is the 5.
You can't put the
there and 5 comes out of there.
Okay. Yeah, I could, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Is that okay? Duplicate the slide and redo it.
At this point, do you make a counter proposal, or do you wait for this one to either get a second or?
No, we have a motion. I'll make a second to that. We'll start with Councilmember Seastrand.
I'd rather go with D, so I'll vote nay on that, but not the.
No.
But D.
D is what he proposed.
No, he proposed
vote a modified D, so.
For 5,000.
He modified D, okay.
I think having the 50 in the availability, and it's not that later I wouldn't mind relooking at that, but I feel like we need to have at least enough to work with there to be able to do a good study and come back with a good vision.
Nay?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay. That passes with Proposal D. Thank you, Dave.
Modified.
Modified D.
Modified D, thank you. Modified.
And does that also include the mini?
That includes
all of it.
All of it.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yep.
60,000, the recreation side, all of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to a resolution amending the policies and procedures for city option funding of recreation, cultural facilities, and cultural organizations known as the CARE program. Steve Downs is the presenter.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Just a couple small changes to the policies and procedures. So we visited this last February. We made some changes to add the mid-major category. Over the course of the year, we found the need to make some changes to the way we to actually distribute the funds to the mid-major. So the purpose of this is ultimately to better protect against the misuse of public funds. The way we're proposing is the same way, basically, that we have allocated CDBG funding for the last 30 years. So beginning in fiscal year 2018, which would be this July 1, many and mid-major organizations will receive their funding on a reimbursement basis rather than as a lump sum. So how it currently works is July 1 comes, every organization comes in, signs a contract, and then we issue checks for the full amount to each organization, and then it's up to them to submit a report back to us that they signed themselves, telling us how they use the money. We have a couple exceptions built in. We reached out to every organization that would be affected by this to ask for their thoughts, their opinions, suggest any changes, help us work through this to make sure it's both administratively feasible, not overly burdensome on the organizations, but still serves the purpose of protecting the city from misuse of funds. We had some great feedback. Ms. James from the Chantinettes mentioned one of them. That's the first exception that we would have, is that organizations that have completed an audit or review within the last year, this would be something done by a CPA, will be able to receive a lump sum payment. The audit or review would help us know that they have internal controls in place to protect against misuse of public funds. The second part came from a couple different organizations, but one of their concerns was some of these large purchases that they need to make, not having the money up front to be able to float until they can get reimbursement. And so we have an exception that any advances for a single purchase that exceeds $1,000 can be made as long as they have a proof of an invoice, and then they show proof of payment at some point so that we know that the money was spent where it was going to be. So we tried to make sure that it's, again, not overly burdensome, where nobody's being asked to float thousands of dollars at a time. We can obviously, as soon as reimbursement request is made, within 14 days, we can have a check in their hands. So the hope is that for some of these smaller ones, again, they can make a payment that we'll be able to get it to them within a couple weeks. So those are the changes that are being made. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Councilor McDonald.
If there aren't questions, I'm ready to make a motion on this subject, as we did discuss it in the pre-meeting.
You bet.
I recommend that the City Council by resolution approve the resolution updating the care policies and procedures.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Start with Councilmember Seastrand. He's
Aye.
popular tonight.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
The resolution passes. Thank you. We'll now move on to a resolution adopting the Aspen and Timpview Neighborhood Plan and amending the City of Orem General Plan to include the Aspen and Timpview Neighborhood Plan as Appendix F. Kirby is our presenter. He's been waiting for hours, and now you can present.
I had a presentation prepared for this evening, but I'm going to forego that in interest that we have 3 advisory council members here that waited most of the evening. And I'm going to take just a little turn on this and ask them a few questions and then let you ask them some questions about the plan and the process. So we have Becky Buxton, who was on the advisory council and is also a planning commissioner. Jenny Bradley, who's a manager at the Aston and Monteval apartments. And Nancy Parker, who's a resident in the Aspen neighborhood. Okay, so going through this plan.
How do you manage 2 apartment complexes at the same time?
I work in the corporate office. We have a site team there.
Okay, thank you.
Going through this plan process, what would you say was one of the major concerns that you can recall neighborhood residents having in the neighborhood?
A huge concern was encroachment of development, current and future especially. So, my neighbors seem to be concerned about buffering and keeping development closer to State Street and away from the neighborhoods.
Yes, would both of you like to share concerns that came up when you went through this neighborhood plan process?
We were concerned about, I live on 1600 North. We affectionately call it I-16 because of the traffic. And so there were a lot of the neighbors in that area that are concerned about that. We worked with Paul Goodrich on getting that project, if there's going to be a project, to get it going so that the residents on 1600 North are not in limbo.
So are you aware of some of the thoughts with regards to 1600 North?
Yes.
Okay.
Go away.
Okay. So 1600 North to the west of State Street.
Yeah, to the freeway.
Yes, that needs to be widened, similar to what Center Street is and the Parkway, not the Parkway, but like Center Street and 8th North. And then, of course, 1600 North going to the east, that's looking to handle more traffic in the future. So,
We don't know that yet.
I was going to say, I wish I could say that that was not the case, but to keep the traffic flowing, that's actually a major artery going in our city.
Right, so that was a big concern. And then there were other concerns with lighting and the lights in each direction, the timing of the lights,
Timing of the light.
directions. And then I particularly, because I have a disabled daughter, was concerned about the wheelchair ramps on the sidewalks. There are 6 places on 950 West that do not have them. And I got a call today from Colby, I think, and he's got it on his list of things to do. So I'm very pleased that this is I feel like one of the blessings of this program, of the neighborhood programs, is that things that I would feel bad or complain, but I wouldn't even know who to go to. And would they even listen to me if I did, that kind of thing. And because of the neighborhood program, we were listened to and taken seriously. And now a particular thing that I would like done is already in the process of being done.
Thank you, Nancy. You highlighted a point there, and that is that we had 3 public meetings and we had 9 advisory council meetings, and you had the opportunity to meet with several city staff. In that process, what did you learn about the city or how the city works that you didn't know before going through this process? Jenny, anything about working with city staff or learning about the city that you didn't know before about Orem?
Sure, yeah. I was just very impressed with how much people care. I think everybody worked together really well and came up with a good plan because all the residents care about the community. Everybody does. So it was nice to see everybody come together and find out what is important to each one and really dive into it and figure out something that works for everyone.
Thank you. Just while I have you there, working with a lot of renters in Orem, what's your experience? Do renters care or not care about the city of Orem?
They care. They're renting by choice. When I was looking at demographics the other day at one of our Orem communities, the average person there is 32 years old. They make $75,000 a year. We have a high-end clientele that they're choosing to be renters, but they do care. They care about the city. They contribute immensely to the city, and they're looking forward to the continued improving on parks and amenities and things that we've set forth in the plan.
One thing I'd like to just bring up. You mentioned that they're choosing to rent. I think a lot of people, for example, in the Aston, now I don't know about all the rest, but in the Aston choose to rent there due to the amenity package, the quality of the apartments, the beauty of them. So it's not just that they have to rent, they choose to rent because there's a lot of advantages to them there.
Correct, yes.
Let me ask one more question for any of you that want to answer. Going through this plan process that has taken about a year now, is there anything we could do to improve? And, we'd really like some constructive feedback, any way that this plan process could be done better in the future, because we have about 5 more plans to go till we start updating the existing ones.
I have a thought just about exposure, because one of my regrets is that more of my neighbors didn't avail themselves of the opportunity to participate. I have no idea why. It's very frustrating to me personally, but and I don't know if they didn't know or they didn't care. I'm not sure, but I feel like the more exposure you can get about this is happening, come join us, maybe you'll get a larger group to participate.
I second that. It's huge because of it. I understand the need of the widening of 1600 North, whereas before I would have just said, you can take my house, but now because of all the meetings we've been going to and the different people they had come, we had the city planner one, we had the neighborhood watch officer come, all the different people we had come in. It gave us a broad picture of what the goals are in Orem, the things that they want to do, the things, how it affects us, that kind of thing. And so I totally agree. If there's some way of advertising more so that more people become involved, then you'll get more ideas, more cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. I'm trying very hard to get that kind of participation. Instead of meeting here, I've tried to do all our public meetings in the neighborhoods at elementary schools. We've been getting over 100 at the meetings we've had since then. I'm bugging Jason to get some funding to put up signs, and I'm willing to drive out and put up signs for these meetings, because I'd love to see 1,000 people in an auditorium that show up. That means
So you just need to do a robocall and then just make sure that you offer some good food, whatever that is.
I do have a big smoker. I might be doing a barbecue for this last Geneva Heights, Orem Park, Suncrest.
Councilmember Lentz has a question for you, Kirby.
No, but on a serious note, before I turn it over to you to see if y'all have any questions, I just want to say that this is one of my responsibilities as a long-range planner here, is to head up this neighborhood plan program, and I love it. This is great. Are we dealing with the most intricate, detailed, high-level planning here? No, but this is the heart of what planning is and what local government is, and that's listening to our residents. And one of the big parts of that is that our residents may have misconceptions about how government works. One of the big misconceptions they have is everything is moving so slowly. They never listen, nothing gets done. And what they don't understand is that's exactly how it's designed. It's designed to go slow, because if it goes fast, you miss things. I hear all the time, hey, I didn't know that they voted on that. I didn't know that that was happening. I wish I knew. That's why this neighborhood plan process takes time. That's why decisions take time. That's why sometimes things are continued. And so this is a neighborhood plan program, the end product of which is a neighborhood plan that you can go to orem.org/planning to read in detail. But the heart of this program is getting feedback from residents, and it's explaining to residents what we're doing as a city, as city leaders and as city staff, to try and take the feedback that they have and put it into law and put it into action. So I'm excited to be a part of this program, and I hope that all of you had a chance to read through this. And if you have any questions for the advisory council, they're here right now. You can ask them.
Councilmember Lentz has a question.
So I appreciate your willingness to volunteer to serve in this capacity, and it was fun getting to know some of you a little bit better as well. I'm just wondering if we could use our technology tools a little bit more effectively, like Facebook Live or something, where maybe somebody wants to participate, but they have to take their kid to a soccer game or something, but they could pull up the video of the meeting on their phone and ask a comment, and whether they can get the answer then, or maybe we just go through and answer some of the questions afterward. I do think that there are a lot of people that do care and do want to participate, but just have lives, and it's tough to find time for something that you hadn't already scheduled in there. So maybe we can try to leverage our technology tools a little bit more to make it more accessible to people, both during the meeting and afterward.
Thank you. Councilmember Seastrand.
So out of curiosity, how much time did each of you spend on this project?
There were 9 advisory council meetings and 3 public meetings. Each of those lasted at least an hour. If you went to all of them, that would have been 12 hours of participation.
12 plus.
Okay, and then plus talking to your neighbors and trying to get additional input. Okay, did everybody agree with your perspectives?
I think everybody was good with working together.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little give and take.
Right.
But I think the things that the people were most concerned about got addressed.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You look like a good group, so. Any other comments from the council?
I'll just give one comment, because this is one of the bigger takeaways that I'm giving to the neighborhoods, is that when you make a decision, when you have a decision before you that you have to make, you're going to get the squeaky wheels that come in at this meeting, and you should listen to them because they're here and they'll give public comment. But the public comment period at a meeting like this isn't always the best gauge of how the neighborhood feels about the decision you're making. Go back to a plan and read it when you see a decision affects a neighborhood, and get a better feel for what the consensus of the neighborhood is, their priorities, because they're in these plans, and that's one of the major intents of these plans. And with that, I'll leave it to you to take a vote on this.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm open to having Sam make a motion.
Okay, happily do so, unless anybody else has any other comments or questions. I move that we approve the Aspen and Timpview Neighborhood Plan and amend the City of Orem General Plan to include the Orem, Aspen, and Timpview Neighborhood Plan as Appendix F.
Second.
Okay, we'll start with Councilmember McDonald.
Aye.
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 I'm afraid you didn't start with me, but
I know.
Vote aye.
Got to give somebody else a chance, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so the resolution passes. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your good work. Jamie, any items that you might have? Okay, so I would accept a motion to adjourn over to room 107 after this. And we have some birthday items, but we also have some strawberry cheesecake. So
moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Yeah.
Come and join us.
We'll get
Yep.
these.
Join us.
Hey.
We're also feeding the whole city lunch.
That's true. So we have enough cheesecake for you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Mayor, thank you. You bet. Abby,
15,000 more, better than nothing.
Yeah, jeez, 315. Thank you so much.
Nope, not.
So are you? I guess I am. Okay. That's what they said.
So I,
Thanks.
thank you.
Good night, appreciate it. Have everybody.